Li Mei's Sword of Destiny. Chapter 1554. After Yi Qinyu stopped her dance, the entire lake quietened down as well. The eyes of everyone were still staring at that supreme figure under the moonlight. That figure seemed to be branded into the depths of their souls, so beautiful that it was suffocating. No matter how strong one's cultivation base was, when Yi Qinyu danced, no one would be able to resist her charm. The dance of a fairy is truly rare in this world. After a long time, a soft sigh rang out. Everyone gradually woke up. When they stared at Yi Qinyu's incomparably demonic beauty, they all felt an intense impulse to take her for themselves. Palace mistress, we should return. Qin Wentian stood on the dragon boat as he transmitted his voice to Yi Qinyu. Yi Qinyu smiled and glanced at him as she replied, "Have you finished your tryst with your lover? I haven't played enough yet." After speaking, Yi Qinyu turned to everyone and continued, "Everyone, please don't blame me for making a fool of myself today. I only wish to find an ideal husband to accompany me. I wonder if anyone is willing?" Qin Wentian had a dumbfounded look on his face as he stared at Yi Qinyu. This demoness, what was she trying to do exactly? Naturally, if Fairy doesn't mind, I'm willing to love only Fairy in this life. An extraordinarily handsome young man spoke. His skin was so thick that it caused people to click their tongues. He actually dared to directly confess. If Fairy can accompany me by my side, even if I can't cultivate in this life, I'm willing. Another person spoke. Everyone expressed their stances one after another. Among them, there were some Empyreans with extremely high cultivation bases. All of them were mesmerized by Yi Qinyu. At this moment, there were indeed many people who were deeply attracted by Yi Qinyu. They were simply infatuated with her, and were willing to give up everything to have her. There are so many people, how can this little maiden choose? Since this is a world of cultivation, why don't we all compete based on strength? The one who can defeat all the heroes in the end, I will follow him. How about it? Yi Qinyu's beautiful eyes flashed with a charming smile, causing everyone to be infatuated. A peak stage immortal king stepped out, directly walking towards Yi Qinyu. I'm willing to give it a try. Boom! Abruptly, a gigantic fiery palm imprint descended from the sky, directly blasting towards the immortal king. That immortal king's expression drastically changed. A deafening boom rang out as that peak stage immortal king screamed in agony as his body was directly smashed into the lake. How laughable! Fairy is at the immortal emperor realm. An immortal king actually dares to step forward? An extraordinary cultivator walked out with his hands clasped behind his back. He was wearing a fiery robe and said, "I'm an elder of the Xinyan sect. If you don't mind, I'm willing to protect you." A mere elder of the Mystic Flame sect dares to act rashly here. I advise you not to come out and embarrass yourself. An Empyrean young man stepped out. His cultivation base was extremely high, at the immortal emperor realm. Also, he looked extremely young, like a gentleman, incomparably carefree. This was a disciple of an extraordinary power in Emperor City. His talent was extremely high, and his appearance was handsome. Thus he was very confident. Fairy is a supreme beauty, able to topple cities with a single dance, and also has such a high cultivation base. Initially, I wouldn't be able to match up to you. But since Fairy has spoken, I naturally have to fight for this opportunity. This person spoke beautifully, but in his heart, he was guessing that Yi Qinyu might be Wu Xiu, who cultivated the charm arts. Although she was beautiful, she was abandoned by others and wanted to find a power to rely on. Not only him, many people here also had the same thought. If not, with such a beauty and such a cultivation base, what qualifications did she have to choose a Dao companion? Palace Lord, have you played enough? Qin Wentian's expression turned black. When he saw more and more people arriving, he knew that the Jialan monarch's subordinates would notice them. Although no one knew that Yi Qinyu was a bandit, it was still better to be more cautious. If there were any clues, things wouldn't be fun. Yi Qinyu's eyes were filled with hidden bitterness as she glanced at Qin Wentian. She transmitted her voice, "If you don't act now, I might really leave with someone else." This vixen. Qin Wentian was speechless in his heart. Was she playing like this just to force him to act? However, he could tell that regardless of whether it was plundering or her actions today, Yi Qinyu had always done whatever she wanted. She had no reservations at all, but she was also extremely intelligent. From the start, she wanted to see his astral souls and didn't force him to do anything. She only gave him a supreme cultivation platform. You clearly knew that she wanted to rope you in, but you still fell for it. And now, this Yi Qinyu was also doing this intentionally. Was she trying to force him to act? This crazy woman. Qin Wentian sighed silently. With a step he moved towards Yi Qinyu. After arriving beside Yi Qinyu, Qin Wentian stretched out his hand and pulled her back. Let's go. Sure, hug me. Yi Qinyu's eyes were like silk as she stared at Qin Wentian. I'm just taking advantage of you for free. I won't take responsibility. Don't regret it. Qin Wentian was incomparably depressed. After being teased by her for so many days, Qin Wentian was also extremely depressed. He lifted Yi Qinyu up, and when Yi Qinyu's soft and supple body wrapped around him, she would definitely be able to cause him to sink into oblivion instantly. Put her down. The young man from before had an unsightly expression on his face. An immortal king actually dared to come out and snatch her away? Let's go. Qin Wentian carried Yi Qinyu and directly moved forward. That immortal emperor radiated a resplendent light, enveloping him. Qin Wentian coldly glanced at him, and in just an instant, a terrifying eye technique was unleashed, instantly creating an eye technique space that caused his opponent to feel as though he was trapped within. Boundless sword might descended from the sky, forming a sword domain that could destroy everything. He roared loudly as emperor might gushed forth, sweeping through everything. Qin Wentian continued moving forward, punching out with a myriad of fist lights that howled in anger. It was like the fist of a heavenly god, tyrannical to the extreme. That immortal emperor roared in rage as a thunderous boom rang out. He was struck by the fist and was forced back explosively as he coughed out a mouthful of blood. Upon seeing this powerful attack, the eyes of everyone narrowed. When they saw Qin Wentian passing by, no one dared to block him. After that, they saw Yi Qinyu smiling charmingly at them, as though her scheme had succeeded. Only at this moment did they understand that Yi Qinyu was doing this because she wanted this young man to act. In the blink of an eye, the figures of Qin Wentian and Yi Qinyu vanished from the vision of everyone. Many people felt a sense of disappointment and frustration. That beautiful dance still lingered in their minds, unable to disperse even after a very long time. Was she really just an ordinary female who cultivated in the art of charm? That kind of demeanor, that kind of dance, could she be? Qin Wentian's speed was extremely fast, soaring through the air. Yi Qinyu's hands were hooked around his neck, as she stared at him with a myriad of emotions in her eyes. Under the moonlight, that flawless countenance and incomparably alluring figure caused Qin Wentian to not dare to look at her. Palace mistress, are you satisfied now? Qin Wentian released his neck, but Yi Qinyu actually didn't want to let go. She smiled warmly. After today, I'm afraid you won't be able to forget about me forever. As she spoke, she released her grip and walked side by side with Qin Wentian. A charming smile that could move the hearts of men could be seen on her face. Qin Wentian's heart trembled slightly. That dance flashed in his mind, as well as the tender figure that was in his arms earlier. He silently sighed in his heart. As expected, the things she wanted to do would always be accomplished unintentionally. In addition, even though he knew she was doing this intentionally, he still couldn't stop her. Today, Qin Wentian initially came here to see Princess Kitamura. But unknowingly, most probably, the memories of today were only about Princess Kitamura. This palace mistress of his was simply too awesome. Palace mistress, given your cultivation base and looks, why must you do this? Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Yi Qinyu gently stared at Qin Wentian as she smiled. Could it be that you don't know that you are very handsome? Qin Wentian was completely speechless. He naturally wouldn't be so foolish to think that a supreme beauty at the immortal emperor realm would tempt him like this just because he was very handsome. Oh yeah, do you still want to see the dance I performed earlier? If you want to see it in the future, you can come and look for me. I will dance it for you alone. Yi Qinyu suddenly laughed. After a moment of astonishment, a spatial gate appeared. Qin Wentian stepped into it and fled in defeat. After returning to Heavenly City, Qin Wentian immediately entered closed-door seclusion. He was afraid that if he were to interact with this demoness for too long, he might really be eaten up by her. As the #1 beauty of Heavenly City, Even if Yi Qianyu didn't take the initiative to seduce others, there would be countless people drooling over her. Let alone when she went all out to seduce others. Most probably, not many people would be able to block her. Naturally, others wouldn't block her as well. With such a supreme beauty throwing herself at them, who would reject her? However, things were different for Qin Wentian. If he really accepted Yi Qianyu, he would have to accept everything Yi Qianyu had to shoulder. He naturally understood this point in his heart. The hatred between her and the two world palaces as her man, he naturally had to bear it. This wasn't the main reason. The deeper reason was naturally because of Qing'er and Qingcheng. They had given up too much for him and he knew that they were still waiting for him to return. He had to return to the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms as soon as possible. Right now, his most important goal was to raise his strength. When facing a woman like Yi Qianyu, who wouldn't be moved? But even if his heart was moved, he still couldn't take that step forward. This time around, he entered closed-door seclusion for a very long time. During this period of time, he came out a few times but never for more than a day. At most, he would chat with Yi Qianyu, drink a few cups of wine, or ask about Princess Kitamura's current situation. After that, he would return to his closed-door seclusion. With such cultivation conditions, how could he not work hard? Unknowingly, another 10 years passed. It has been 23 years since Qin Wentian entered the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. Not only did he recover his cultivation, he even surpassed his peak state back then. During these 10 years of closed-door seclusion, one could say that he was only a step away from the Immortal Emperor realm. Qin Wentian could faintly sense that he wasn't far from the Immortal Emperor realm. Chapter 1555. In Heavenly City, there was a famous blacksmith named the River Portrait Immortal Emperor. He was an all-round blacksmith. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor was famous for his forging skills. His talent in forging and inscribing formations was extremely high. He was a true grandmaster-level character. Many famous buildings in Heavenly City were built by him. Not only so, some emperor-level characters from the major powers of the Livefire Palace would also personally visit him to invite him to help out. However, the River Portrait Immortal Emperor focused on his cultivation or researching forging. He didn't belong to any major powers and similarly, he didn't belong to any world overlord powers. In the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, the statuses of famed blacksmiths were extremely high. They could easily obtain vast amounts of cultivation resources, and many unaffiliated cultivators wanted to walk the path of famed blacksmiths. When their cultivation base encountered a bottleneck and it was hard for them to advance further, they might spend many years to focus on forging. However, this was the same as cultivation, it required a high level of talent. Also, there were some people who wanted to condense a forging astral soul, and had long since wanted to walk on this path. At this moment, in the residence of the River Portrait Immortal Emperor, Qin Wentian was quietly staring at the River Portrait Immortal Emperor's carving. He was carving divine weapons, directly inscribing them on the gigantic Emperor stones. The weapons created by this method could only be considered the simplest type of divine weapon, and wouldn't have much use. However, the River Portrait Immortal Emperor had carved many of them, filling the entire ground. This was merely a method of his daily cultivation. As for Qin Wentian, he was currently sitting beside the River Portrait Immortal Emperor as he quietly watched. Don't think that this is the simplest form of carving. To the vast majority of people, they wouldn't even be able to do something as simple as this. Cultivation is never something that can be accomplished in a single step. It's the same for forging. For example, language is made up of words. If you can't even speak a single word, how can you combine those words into a sentence? The River Portrait Immortal Emperor was very old. His hair was white but his spirit was very good. This was especially so when he was carving. His eyes shone with a bright light, as though he was in high spirits. You should come here often. With your talent and cultivation base, there are already very few people who can focus on forging. Hence I have taught you many things. Even if you don't choose to walk on this path, it might still be of some help to your cultivation. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor took out a gigantic emperor stone and tossed it to Qin Wentian. Come, try to carve it into a sword. All right. Qin Wentian smiled and nodded. An incomparably sharp sword of law appeared in his hand as he started to carve on the stone. This stone was extremely tough and Qin Wentian's speed was very slow, but he was very serious. Such a cultivation method could be said to be extremely wasteful. Only a wealthy blacksmith would do such a thing. Gradually, the Emperor Stone was shaped by Qin Wentian into the shape of a sword. Numerous clear inscriptions resembling sword inscriptions could be seen emanating from the Emperor Stone. Although it was clearly carved from a single Emperor Stone, tens of thousands of sword intents gushed forth at the same time, resembling a sword domain. As expected, you are extremely talented. If you are willing to focus on this, your future achievements will definitely be much higher than mine. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor smiled at Qin Wentian. Senior praises me too much. It's just that I've studied formations in the past and have some understanding of the Tao of divine inscriptions. That's why I'm able to do this with ease. I still need Senior's guidance, Qin Wentian replied humbly. Talent is the most important factor in forging. Have you read the ancient scrolls I gave you in the past? I've read them all. Qin Wentian nodded. He took out a few jade slips and passed them to the River Portrait Immortal Emperor. Luor, go and bring some more jade slips over. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor spoke. After that, a voice rang out from outside, yes, Grandpa. A moment later, a young lady in white walked over and passed some jade slips to Qin Wentian. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a smile as she spoke. Grandpa has never treated someone so well before. I naturally understand Senior's kindness. Qin Wentian nodded. Last, these things are originally meant for others to look at. It's a waste to leave them on me. Given the talent of this brat, I'm naturally willing to add flowers to his brocade. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor laughed. Little brat Qin, if you have the chance in the future, you can pay a visit to the Heavenly Talisman Realm. The Realm Lord of the Heavenly Talisman Realm has an extremely deep understanding of the Tao of divine inscriptions. There are many powerful blacksmiths there. Heavenly Talisman Realm. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. What a familiar name. So it turned out that the Heavenly Talisman Realm was the same as the Lifelong Realm. Was it part of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms? In that case, the Heavenly Talisman Realm in the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms was merely a chess piece the Realm Lord planted in the lower world. In that case, did the Realm Lord's ultimate goal was to control the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms in his hands? Given how the Heavenly Talisman Realm has been silently developing for so many years, there was a high possibility that this was the case. If they accumulated enough strength, once the Heavenly Talisman Realm came out, they might really be able to topple the entire Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. In that case, this ungoverned Azure Mystic Immortal Realms might become the backup strength of the Heavenly Talisman Realm. Heavenly Talisman Realm Lord? Master? Qin Wentian smiled and shook his head. What sort of status did the Overlord of a realm have? Most probably, he wouldn't be able to climb up to it. Back then when he was at the Celestial Phenomenon Realm, he had already joined the Heavenly Talisman Realm and took the Realm Lord as his master. But in truth, that was merely their wishful thinking. At most, they could only be considered disciples in name. Most probably, the Realm Lord of the Heavenly Talisman Realm wouldn't have the time to care about them. Yeah, the Heavenly Talisman Realm that is adjacent to the Lifelong Realm. You haven't been to such a faraway place yet, right? In the future when you grow stronger, you will naturally have a chance to go. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor laughed. Grandpa, I also want to go on a faraway journey. Why don't you let me go out? The white-robed maiden at the side stared at the River Portrait Immortal Emperor in a charming manner. Haha, with just you? I'm afraid you would be snatched away before you can even go out. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor laughed. Luo Er's lips twitched. No matter what, I'm still at the Immortal King realm. Fine. In the future when you find a Tao companion, you guys can go on a faraway journey. At that time Grandpa won't care about you anymore. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor laughed and shook his head. Grandpa, I won't look for a Tao companion. I just want to accompany Grandpa. How can that do? Grandpa will eventually grow old, and you will meet someone you like sooner or later. Actually, I feel that little brat Qin Wentian isn't bad. Luor, what do you think of him? The River Portrait Immortal Emperor joked. Luor glanced at Qin Wentian. Her pure countenance was filled with shyness. She then glared at the River Portrait Immortal Emperor, Grandpa, what nonsense are you talking about? How can Mr. River Portrait be old? Old man, you are still young and vigorous. In the future, your cultivation base will surely grow stronger. A gentle voice drifted over. Yi Qianyu, who was dressed in a long dress, walked over. Her eyes were filled with hidden bitterness as she glared at Qin Wentian. Palace mistress really knows how to speak. However, compared to her, this old man is truly old. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor smiled and shook his head. Mr. River Portrait, is my man's talent in forging passable? Yi Qianyu smiled. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor started. After that, he saw Yi Qianyu walking to the side of Qin Wentian and stretching out her hand to hold Qin Wentian's arm. Only then did he understand. His eyes were filled with bewilderment as he stared at Yi Qianyu and Qin Wentian. Little brat Qin's talent is naturally extremely good. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor nodded. In that case, many thanks for Mr.'s nurturing. We will bid our farewell first. Yi Qianyu pulled Qin Wentian and left. Qin Wentian was speechless as he was dragged away by her. He then revealed an apologetic smile to the River Portrait Immortal Emperor. After the two of them left, the eyes of the River Portrait Immortal Emperor gleamed with sharpness. Strange, the number one beauty of Heavenly City actually fell in love with a little brat at the Immortal King realm. Turning his head, he saw his granddaughter staring at the two of them in a daze. Luo, are you also interested in that brat Qin Wentian? But it seems like you have given up. You are still far from being able to compete with Yi Qianyu. It's just that although that brat Qin Wentian's talent is very good, is he really worthy of Yi Qianyu's actions? Yi Qianyu and Qin Wentian walked through Heavenly City. Her incomparably charming body leaned against Qin Wentian as she spoke. Recently, you have been coming here every day. Could it be that you have fallen in love with the purity of a young lady? Qin Wentian was speechless. Back then, weren't you the one who introduced me to Senior River Portrait to cultivate the art of forging? I also didn't expect that you would come here to woo girls. Yi Qianyu stared at Qin Wentian. Upon seeing the bitter smile on his face, she nudged him and exhaled. Could it be that I still can't satisfy you? Do you want this mistress to serve you in bed tonight? Palace mistress, can you spare me? Qin Wentian saw numerous gazes directed at him. Many of them were as sharp as blades. This place was Heavenly City, and Yi Qianyu was known as the number one beauty of Heavenly City. Who didn't know of her? If he acted like this in public, his life would surely be in danger very swiftly. A shocking piece of news circulated around Heavenly City. The palace mistress of the Thousand Feathers Palace, the number one beauty of Heavenly City, Yi Qianyu, was actually hugging the arm of a young man in the city. They seemed extremely intimate, and it was said that the two of them were already Dao companions. This young man had long resided in Yi Qianyu's palace. In fact, 10 years ago, Yi Qianyu even paid a huge price to invite the River Portrait Immortal Emperor to construct a supreme cultivation platform for him in her palace. When this news circulated out, countless people felt pain in their hearts. The goddess of their dreams had actually been obtained by someone else? There were some who were filled with hatred. A mere immortal king, what qualifications did he have to obtain Yi Qianyu? Hence, there were actually several immortal emperors who sent out letters of challenge to the mysterious young man, telling him to scram out of the Thousand Feathers Palace. However, Qin Wentian didn't appear. Yi Qianyu got others to act and beat up one of the immortal emperors who sent the letter of challenge. This matter caused countless people to weep. What was going on with this world? Was the number one beauty of Heavenly City possessed by a demon? Could it be that this mysterious young man had a special ability that could gain the favor of females? This news circulated wildly. Today, in the mountain range outside Heavenly City, two figures met. One of them was actually the barbarian emperor while the other was also an immortal emperor. Palace mistress, is it really like the rumors? You are actually infatuated with an immortal king? That immortal emperor's voice was cold. Palace mistress. The barbarian emperor clenched his fists as he spoke with hatred. Qin Wentian has already resided in the palace mistress palace for over 10 years. The expression of the other immortal emperor stiffened. He sighed. I want to meet the palace mistress. It's useless. I've already persuaded her countless times, but the palace mistress is growing more and more disgusted with me. The barbarian emperor clenched his fists so tightly that crackling sounds could be heard. Qin Wentian must die. Let's act according to the plan we agreed upon. Let's not meet again and directly communicate through the messaging crystal. The eyes of that immortal emperor flashed. After a moment of silence, he nodded, fine. Chapter 1556. Qin Wentian's life was as simple as ever. He would comprehend, cultivate, borrow the emperor rank cultivation platform to sense the emperor light descending from the sky, and also research the art of forging. Sometimes he would be like the river portrait immortal emperor sitting there and sculpting. The river portrait immortal emperor was a mid-stage immortal emperor, and was also a grandmaster level character. Forging was something he had to do every day. This would allow him to steadily increase his affinity with the different attributes of emperor-ranked stones, allowing him to be more proficient in forging. Qin Wentian also felt that sculpting allowed him to gain a lot of insights. Every time he sculpted, he would be fully focused and his state of heart would be at peace. However, this was also because Qin Wentian was wealthy now. If it was back then when he first came to the supreme ancient immortal realms, how would he have such conditions? Using emperor-ranked stones to sculpt was simply too extravagant. 10 years ago, he plundered many treasures and obtained a lot of cultivation resources. In addition, with that cultivation platform, he wouldn't be able to use these cultivation resources normally. At this moment on the high ground, Qin Wentian sat on the ground and took out an emperor-ranked stone, quietly sculpting. Beside him, a supreme beauty in white could be seen. Other than Yi Qinyu, who else could it be? Yi Qinyu stared at the serious expression on Qin Wentian's face as her beautiful eyes gleamed with a bright light. She really liked how focused Qin Wentian was when he was sculpting. Even if she tried to tempt him, Qin Wentian would still be unmoved. Yi Qinyu's beautiful eyes suddenly flashed as she stared at the gigantic emperor stone in Qin Wentian's hands. He wasn't sculpting a weapon but was sculpting a person instead. The outline of a person could be faintly seen on the sword he was sculpting. An elegant figure, long hair, and gradually, an extremely beautiful face appeared. Pure and beautiful. A smile that could move the hearts of people. Those beautiful eyes were pure and flawless, capable of toppling empires. Who is she? Yi Qinyu had a serious expression on her face, as she stared at the sword in Qin Wentian's hand. He didn't stop and continued to carve out a flawless and lifelike image of that supreme beauty. After he was done, he continued to carve the image of another human. When the silhouette appeared, Yi Qinyu could already guess that this was a beautiful woman. In truth, it was just as she had guessed. This was a supreme beauty that exuded a faint coldness, incomparably pure and holy, as flawless as a snow lotus on an ice mountain. Who are they? Yi Qinyu's beautiful eyes flashed. She had met Princess Kitamura before, but the two maidens Qin Wentian sculpted were clearly not her. Finally, the engraving sword in Qin Wentian's hand dissipated, transforming back into astral light. He stared at the two silhouettes as a hint of gentleness flashed in his eyes. Such gentleness was something Yi Qinyu had never seen before. Upon seeing that gentle smile, Yi Qinyu's heart involuntarily trembled. Was this the reason why he was able to resist her temptation? They are my wives. Qin Wentian stared at the sculpture as he spoke in a light voice. I'm not someone from the supreme ancient immortal realms. I came from the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms from the lower world. In the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms, my enemies are everywhere. One day, the peak powers of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms arrived at the place where my wives were at, forcing me to show myself. Many of my elders and good friends appeared together with me, resulting in a battle that shook the lower world. As for me, I died in battle. Hence, I can already be considered someone who has died once. Yi Qinyu didn't disturb Qin Wentian. She was actually very quiet as she listened. After that battle, my wife's hair instantly turned white. My other wife was like a living corpse. It was only until I was revived by a stroke of good fortune that she regained her vitality. Her eyes finally regained their luster, and after that, I came to the supreme ancient immortal realms due to a stroke of good fortune. As for them, they are still waiting for me in the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. Qin Wentian smiled gently as he turned his gaze to Yi Qinyu. Is this the reason why your astral souls are extraordinary? Yi Qinyu instantly understood. My talent might be very ordinary. But knowing this, palace mistress, would you still be willing to do this to me? Qin Wentian smiled. Yi Qinyu smiled at Qin Wentian. Her smile didn't have the same charm as before. It was filled with gentleness as she spoke. Can you carve a portrait of me as well? Qin Wentian was instantly speechless. What was this woman thinking about? Upon seeing the look in Qin Wentian's eyes, Yi Qinyu giggled. Maybe I don't have any objections to being your concubine. Do you want to give it a try? Qin Wentian stood up and fled in a sorry state, returning to the cultivation platform. Behind him, Yi Qinyu's laughter rang out. Qin Wentian, are you still a man? Recently, Princess Kitamura suddenly received a mission. This mission was personally issued by the Lifefire Empyrean, wanting her to head to a secret realm. She naturally participated in it. This was an extremely important trial for the Lifefire Palace. She couldn't use external treasures or communicate with anyone. Hence, everything on her, including her interspatial ring, couldn't be brought into the secret realm, including messaging crystals. But even so, she didn't have any doubts. She had been in the Lifefire Palace for many years and knew that this was the rule. But just when Princess Kitamura accepted this mission, the Jialan monarch actually issued a warrant for Qin Wentian's arrest. At the same time, one of Qin Wentian's accomplices would be executed a month later. It was said that Qin Wentian was a spy in the Jialan monarch's palace. This news soon circulated. Was this Qin Wentian one of the bandits from back then? At this moment, Qin Wentian still didn't know about this. Until one day, when he was on his way to the River Portrait Immortal Emperor's place, the barbarian emperor stopped him. What's the matter? Right now, Qin Wentian's attitude towards the barbarian emperor was no longer as polite as in the past. After that incident in the past, he already knew that the barbarian emperor hated him in his heart. Take a look for yourself. The barbarian emperor waved his hand as a warrant appeared before Qin Wentian. Upon seeing the warrant, Qin Wentian's expression instantly turned extremely unsightly to behold. He turned and prepared to return. You want to tell the Empyrean? The barbarian emperor transmitted his voice. Do you think the Empyrean wouldn't know? If you tell her, do you think the Empyrean would still allow you to head to the Emperor City? Or do you think the Empyrean would send people to their deaths for the sake of your lover? Qin Wentian halted his steps. He slowly turned and coldly stared at the barbarian emperor as he transmitted his voice. You want me to head to the Emperor City to die? I can't ask you to go or not. Whether you are willing to go or not, that's your business. In any case, there are only a few days left. Naturally, from my point of view, your life is more important. In addition, the Empyrean likes you, why would you care about a lover? The barbarian emperor coldly laughed as he left. How would I know that this warrant isn't forged by you? Qin Wentian stared at the back of the barbarian emperor as he coldly spoke. How ridiculous, you can easily find out the truth with just a simple investigation. The barbarian emperor directly left. Qin Wentian stood at his original location and took out his messaging crystal. He sent a strand of his immortal sense into it and contacted Princess Kitamura. Yuhong, where are you? There was no reply. He then spoke again. Yuhong, this is an extremely urgent matter. Immediately reply to me. There was still no reply. Qin Wentian's expression instantly turned pale. He lifted his feet and headed towards the River Portrait Immortal Emperor's location. However, his entire person was in a daze. Today he sent many messages, but he didn't receive any reply from Princess Kitamura, no matter what he said. Clearly, the barbarian emperor's words were true. Something happened to Yu Huang. On the second day, Qin Wentian silently left Heavenly City alone. He naturally disguised himself. Regardless of whether it was true or not, he had to go and take a look. He didn't tell Yi Qianyu. Even if she was willing to go together with him, he didn't want to implicate her. After exiting Heavenly City, Qin Wentian sped towards a certain direction with incredible speed. On the way, Qin Wentian frowned. His sharp senses told him that there were people following him. Although this feeling was very weak, his instincts told him that there should be someone following him. However, he didn't care about it and continued on his way. Finally, two figures appeared before him, quietly standing there as though they had been waiting for him. Behind him, that immortal sense no longer concealed itself and directly shot towards him. Very swiftly, another two figures appeared. All four of them were at the Immortal Emperor realm. In fact, one of them was at the mid-stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. All of them were clad in armor and were fully equipped, like they were used to plunder mines. Barbarian Emperor, is this your true killing move? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. One of the two behind him was none other than the Barbarian Emperor. Qin Wentian, if you manage to enter the Emperor city alive and get captured, what if you betray us? Leaving you alive would only be a calamity. The Barbarian Emperor coldly spoke. The Jialan monarch was precisely the one who leaked the news. However, the Barbarian Emperor only had a single goal, and that was to kill Qin Wentian. He naturally wasn't willing to implicate the Thousand Feathers Palace. Even though Yi Qianyu's feelings for him were far inferior compared to Qin Wentian, he still liked Yi Qianyu and had liked her for many years. He only wanted Qin Wentian to die. Are you all also Qianyu's subordinates? Was it the Barbarian Emperor who instigated all of you to kill me? Qin Wentian stared at the others as he spoke. The palace mistress is behaving strangely now. As her subordinates, we can only help her correct her actions. An immortal emperor coldly spoke. Even if we are to be punished, we still don't mind it. I will naturally bear all the punishment. However, the Thousand Feathers Palace is the blood and sweat of us brothers. We cannot allow it to be destroyed in the hands of an outsider. The Barbarian Emperor's voice was extremely cold. All right, let's do it. The others nodded. For immortal emperors, including a mid-stage immortal emperor, using such a lineup to kill a peak-stage immortal king was already sufficient to show that they regarded Qin Wentian highly. This was naturally the arrangement of the Barbarian Emperor. He knew how powerful Qin Wentian was, being able to easily kill an initial stage immortal king. He couldn't help but to be more cautious. An intense light radiated from Qin Wentian. The radiance was so resplendent that people couldn't even open their eyes. Almost at the same time, the four immortal emperors unleashed their powerful law energy. Beams of emperor light descended from the sky, as well as astral light. They stood in four different directions and directly blasted out an attack towards Qin Wentian. Chapter 1557. With a step, Qin Wentian directly departed, vanishing from this area. That immortal emperor turned and coldly stared at the Barbarian Emperor. You will be responsible for his death. Also, you will be responsible for this matter as well. Also, stop all the preparations. Let's hope that nothing will happen to him in time. The mid-stage immortal emperor spoke. They didn't know that Princess Kitamura wasn't captured, and they also didn't know about the arrangements made by the Jialan monarch. After all, even if the Barbarian Emperor wanted to frame Qin Wentian, it was impossible for him to truly collude with the Jialan monarch. If that was the case, he would definitely die. He only sent someone to spread the news of Qin Wentian's identity to the Jialan monarch. Everything that happened next, they were simply taking advantage of the situation to kill Qin Wentian along the way. However, Qin Wentian's true body turned his gaze to one of the immortal emperors. With just a single glance, an eye technique manifested, sealing the emperor light in the sky. That mid-stage immortal emperor stared at Yi Qianyu's vanishing figure. He then turned his gaze to the Barbarian Emperor as killing intent flashed in his eyes. If anything happens to the Palace Lord, you can accompany him in death. The Barbarian Emperor's body trembled. His face contorted as he stared at Yi Qianyu's emotionless gaze. He felt his heart turning cold. The Barbarian Emperor's expression stiffened, turning ashen. We temporarily can't tell the Palace Lord about this matter. Another immortal emperor spoke. That immortal emperor nodded. It was true that they had to wait for the storm to pass before telling the Palace Lord. If not, things would be bad if the Palace Lord went to Jialan Emperor City. Palace Lord. That mid-stage immortal emperor froze. Qin Wentian also stopped and stared at him. The strength of a mid-stage immortal emperor was many times stronger compared to initial stage immortal emperors. The two of them basically couldn't be compared. Right now, even if Qin Wentian didn't block out the astral light, he would still be able to kill initial stage immortal emperors. But killing mid-stage immortal emperors wasn't so easy. You once asked me which part of you can't compare to him. And man, let me ask you now. Which part of you can compare to him? Yi Qianyu impolitely asked. The Barbarian Emperor clenched his fists tightly. He only felt shame and anger. Do you really think I'm stupid? A voice suddenly rang out. causing the eyes of the three of them to freeze. They raised their heads and looked in a certain direction, only to see a beautiful figure walking over with a little lion in her arms. This time around, we have plundered the main mine under the Jalon monarch's control. The Livefire Empyrean has many experts under him, and it's unknown how many powerful characters there are. Even if you don't have the heart to betray us, it doesn't mean that you won't be controlled. You must know that there are many methods to make a person speak. Keep an eye on him. After this matter is over, we will settle the score. If he dares to disobey, kill him without mercy. If something happens to me, immediately disband the Thousand Feathers Palace and send everyone away. Yi Qinyu commanded. The other two immortal emperors only watched from the back and didn't participate. Earlier, when Qin Wentian killed an immortal emperor with a single strike, they still felt trepidation in their hearts. If Qin Wentian took advantage of this opportunity, he would be able to kill all of them in an extremely short period of time. They had no choice but to act cautiously. They might as well let this mid-stage immortal emperor act alone to kill Qin Wentian. The mid-stage immortal emperor ignored the barbarian emperor and continued to stare at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold killing intent. He punched out with his fist and in an instant, a sword of light pierced through space, not giving his opponent any time to react. That immortal emperor roared. His emperor law energy gushed forth from his body as he blasted out an attack towards the sword of light. However, the sword of light that was infused with the power of light seemed to be able to distort, attacking from the top of his opponent's head, back, and all other directions. Must you go? If you turn back, I can stop. That mid-stage immortal emperor suddenly spoke, his words causing the eyes of the barbarian emperor to narrow. What do you mean by that? The emperor light from one of the immortal emperors intensified to the extreme. Destructive lightning flashed, enveloping the entire space, transforming into a gigantic net of lightning that shot downwards. Under the bombardment of lightning, many of Qin Wentian's illusory bodies were directly shattered. Boundless swords of light shot out, directly piercing into his opponent's body. That immortal emperor's body flashed with a blinding light before he screamed in agony. His body disintegrated under the light, dying. The Empyrean regarded Qin Wentian highly. This wasn't simply because he was infatuated with men. From Qin Wentian's body, a blinding light radiated forth, capable of destroying everything. After the light flashed, rings of resplendent Vajra holy will enveloped his entire body. But even so, the attacks of the four immortal emperors were still able to destroy everything. Many of their attacks directly entered Qin Wentian's body. The eyes of that mid-stage immortal emperor gleamed with a terrifying light. With a single glance, it felt like he could split the heavens and earth apart. He punched out with his fist as the light from the great Tao gushed forth like torrential waves. Meteors rained down from the sky, burying everything. Numerous spatial gates appeared once more. Qin Wentian wanted to increase the distance between him and his opponent, but his opponent took another step forward. The spatial gates were instantly torn apart. Qin Wentian's body was once again subjected to that terrifying tearing force. The barbarian emperor and the other initial stage immortal emperor felt their hearts trembling when they saw Qin Wentian's attack. The killing intent in the eyes of the barbarian emperor grew even more intense. As for the other immortal emperor, his heart wavered. Maybe this was the reason why the Empyrean treated him so well? Finally, that mid-stage immortal king took a step to the side. What are you doing? The barbarian emperor roared. Qin Wentian glanced over, staring at the barbarian emperor. After that, the barbarian emperor shut up. The Buddha devil light flashed. Qin Wentian was a half-Buddha, half-devil. He had a golden Buddha body, undying and indestructible. Even so, why does the Empyrean have to personally take the risk? Is this worth it? That mid-stage immortal emperor spoke again. The mid-stage immortal king fell silent. He stared at Qin Wentian as the pressure in the air grew even heavier. Go. Qin Wentian waved his hands as numerous swords of great radiance shot out, piercing through the air. In the air, his sword domain contained boundless sword might that danced in the air, whistling through the air towards his opponent. It was like a sword river cascading down from the 9 heavenly layers, simply too resplendent. Behind him, a pair of demonic eyes appeared. They were incomparably gigantic, and with a single glance, they transformed into an high-technique dimension, sealing everything. However, that mid-stage immortal emperor punched out with a single punch, shattering everything. No matter how tyrannical your law domain is, I'll shatter it with a single punch. Speaking of which, it was a little ironic. For immortal emperors were fighting against a single peak-stage immortal king. In the end, the other two immortal emperors actually chose to hide at the back, not daring to act. My identity hasn't been exposed yet. I'll naturally act according to the situation. With the little lion around, even if something happens, I would still be able to escape. Yi Qinyu smiled. After that, her silhouette flashed as she followed after Qin Wentian, flying into the distance. Boom! The space trembled. Qin Wentian only felt his body shuddering violently. The expression of that mid-stage immortal emperor was extremely cold. For immortal emperors acted together, but Qin Wentian actually managed to kill one of them in the blink of an eye. Boundless astral light shone on him as his law energy surged to the extreme. With another step out, Qin Wentian only felt a supreme might boring down on him. His body felt like it was about to be torn apart. Because of this, one of their immortal emperors died. But could they blame Qin Wentian? The four of them wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian naturally had to retaliate. "Hey man, I'm truly very disappointed in you." Yi Qinyu stared at the barbarian emperor. Qin Wentian glanced at her in bewilderment. After that, he understood what she meant. He then spoke, "You can rest assured. I, Qin, have received the favor of Palace Lord. Even if I end up in the hands of the Jialan monarch, I will definitely not betray Palace Lord and all of you." The barbarian emperor wanted to take revenge on Qin Wentian. This no longer concerned Qin Wentian's life alone. If Qin Wentian was jealous and directly spread this news, wouldn't they all die without a burial ground? Once Qin Wentian stepped into the immortal emperor realm, he would definitely be a character that could hold his own. It wouldn't be a problem for him to kill mid-stage immortal emperors. To them this would be a great help. But because of a single sentence from the barbarian emperor, Qin Wentian might die. There are some things that cannot be obstructed. If he hates you, what's the point of everything? Yi Qinyu sighed. Around Qin Wentian, an even more intense light radiated from him, enveloping this entire space. A sword domain appeared in the air, with Qin Wentian at the center. Numerous supreme swords of light floated in front of Qin Wentian, unceasingly radiating a boundless sword might of light. The attacks of the two of them frenziedly clashed against each other as destructive might ravaged the surroundings. The eyes of that mid-stage immortal emperor gleamed with a resplendent light. When he saw that Qin Wentian had suddenly stopped, he retreated and didn't continue his attack. The barbarian emperor concealed Qin Wentian's talent, and only told them that their palace lord was bewitched by Qin Wentian, doting on this peak-stage immortal king. The entire Thousand Feathers Palace would be destroyed if they were to do so. But after the battle with Qin Wentian, it was very clear that the barbarian emperor had lied. "Regardless of whether you believe it or not, I have to go." Qin Wentian didn't say anything more. He stared at the barbarian emperor. However, how terrifying was Qin Wentian's defense? He had an undying body and the law energy of life. His damaged body instantly recovered, and at the same time, numerous illusory figures appeared in the air. Not only so, countless spatial gates also appeared in the air, leading to different directions. The illusory figures of Qin Wentian all flew towards different directions in an instant. "If it wasn't for the fact that you are my father's disciple, I would have killed you on the spot just because of this matter." Yi Qinyu's voice was cold to the extreme. The barbarian emperor's actions had already crossed her bottom line. As a woman, she controlled the Thousand Feathers Palace, secretly controlling a major power. Robbing was an extremely dangerous matter. As the core members of the Thousand Feathers Palace, if any of them were to die, the lives of everyone here would surely be affected. "Palace Lord." The expression of that mid-stage immortal emperor drastically changed. "Palace Lord, why must you take the risk? Why don't you directly intercept Qin Wentian and prevent him from going there?" This attack was an ability bestowed to him by one of his astral souls, the Tree of Life. It allowed him to change the direction of his attack. Chapter 1558. The Jialan Emperor City was as flourishing as ever. One of Qin Wentian's astral souls, the Eyes of Truth, had an extremely powerful illusory ability that could change one's appearance and aura. Right now, he had already arrived at the center of this flourishing emperor city. As expected, the barbarian emperor didn't lie to him. Qin Wentian tried to contact Princess Kitamura again, but it was useless. He didn't know how many times he tried to contact the barbarian emperor through his messaging crystal. All of this proved that something had really happened to Princess Kitamura. The barbarian emperor had betrayed him. Qin Wentian wasn't clear about the situation at the Livefire Palace, and also didn't know what Princess Kitamura's current status was in the Livefire Palace. But he knew that everything he saw led him to a certain direction. That was, tomorrow afternoon, the Jialan monarch would execute Princess Kitamura on the execution platform in the Jialan Emperor City. As for why was it so troublesome, it was naturally to lure him out. If not, he could just kill her directly. But even though he knew the Jialan monarch's plot, he had no choice but to come. The matter of him becoming a bandit had nothing to do with Princess Kitamura. On the second day, the surroundings of the execution platform in the Jialan Emperor City were extremely lively. Many experts gathered here and the scorching sun rays cascaded down, causing everyone to feel uncomfortable. The execution platform was located in the south of the Jialan Emperor City and had a mountain ridge behind it. It was an incomparably gigantic blood-colored execution platform. In history, many bandit characters had been killed on this execution platform, and there were also some who had violated the laws of the Jialan Emperor City. At this moment on the execution platform, there was a gigantic black cage made from black stone and was incomparably sturdy. Immortal senses had no way to permeate it. Within it, the person who was about to be executed was imprisoned. Below the execution platform, many people had gathered. They heard that the person imprisoned was a great beauty and was a spy for the bandit 10 years ago. She was extremely powerful and was highly regarded by the Jialan monarch. Many people were discussing, thinking that this beauty was unlucky and that it would be difficult for her to escape death. Qin Wentian was among the crowd as well. His immortal sense gushed out and he naturally discovered that there were as many experts as the clouds in this space. Just on the execution platform, there were already 2 immortal emperors guarding it. In the shadows, there were even more immortal emperors. With such a lineup, how could they allow others to destroy it? The sunlight became brighter and brighter, stinging people's eyes. Gradually, the sun rose into the sky and hung above the heads of the crowd. A few figures soared through the air and among them, the Jialan monarch was among them. He personally came here to carry out the punishment. Beside the Jialan monarch, there was another Empyrean character with an extremely powerful cultivation base. He was actually a peak-stage immortal emperor, and his name was the Crow Emperor. He was someone sent by the Livefire Palace to coordinate with the Jialan monarch in this operation. Jialan, are you sure he will come this time around? Crow transmitted his voice to the Jialan monarch. That fellow's relationship with Princess Kitamura isn't ordinary. Even if he doesn't come here to capture Princess Kitamura, he would at least come to take a look. He should have already arrived. Even if he made a mistake, it would only waste some of Mr. Crow's time. I will naturally compensate Mr. Crow properly. The Jialan monarch replied. Since this is the case, I'll wait and see. Crow didn't say anything more. The Jialan monarch waved his hand and a moment later, the area around the execution platform was directly locked down. An incomparably powerful army from the Jialan monarch city appeared, locking down the entire area. The area was so vast that even a peak-stage immortal emperor's immortal sense could sense it. Immortal emperors appeared in every direction. In the air, the immortal emperors guarding the various locations directly took out their emperor-ranked weapons. Resplendent light cascaded downwards and in an instant, a supreme emperor might descended from the sky, enveloping the entire area. Everyone in this space was dumbfounded as they stared in shock at this scene. What was going on? Everyone. At this moment, the Jialan monarch spoke. His voice thundered through the entire space. Today I, Jialan, am here to capture bandits. If I offend all of you in any way, I hope that everyone won't blame me. The bandits are simply too arrogant and I have no choice but to do this. From now onwards, everyone is to remain at your original location and not move. If not, you will be treated as bandits and killed on the spot. If you are killed by mistake, don't blame me. The Jalan monarch's voice suddenly turned cold and imposing. Naturally, if we verify that you guys aren't bandits, we will naturally allow you to leave. As long as everyone cooperates, there's no need to worry about being killed by mistake. This point this monarch can guarantee. The hearts of everyone trembled. This Jalan monarch arranged such a formation. It was actually to force the bandits to show themselves. After that, he would lock down the entire space and investigate them one by one. In that case, this execution was all for the sake of waiting for the bandits to show themselves? In the crowd, Qin Wentian's heart also trembled. His expression changed, becoming extremely unsightly to behold. This Jalan monarch was truly ruthless. He arranged such a huge formation just to gamble that Qin Wentian would show himself? If he didn't show himself, the Jalan monarch would have wasted all his efforts. However, Qin Wentian came. Although he clearly knew that there might be a conspiracy waiting for him, this matter concerned the life and death of Princess Kitamura. Maybe the Jalan monarch would feel that he was a fool, but this was him, Qin Wentian. He had always been like this. Let's start the investigation. The Jalan monarch spoke. After that, the guards in the various locations started to call out names, allowing the immortal emperors to come before the immortal emperor. After that, the immortal emperor would personally inspect them. The method of inspection was very simple. The fluctuations of astral energy in their bodies, their law attributes, their astral souls. Even if someone changed their appearance, they wouldn't be able to hide from such a detailed inspection. Qin Wentian stared at the prison. Although he knew that this was a conspiracy, he still couldn't help but wonder if Princess Kitamura was inside the prison or not. He was still concerned about everything. However, the Jalan monarch didn't seem to have any intentions of opening the prison. The speed of the inspection was extremely fast. More and more experts were released. Sooner or later, it would be Qin Wentian's turn. At this moment, a figure flashed by, actually rushing into the sealed space. When the guards saw who it was, they were all stunned. They didn't stop him and allowed him to continue on his way. "What are you doing here?" The Jalan monarch frowned when he saw the figure who appeared before him. It was actually his daughter Jalan Mingyue. "Father." Jalan Mingyue walked to the side of the Jalan monarch. After that, she took out a divine weapon and suddenly stabbed it towards the Jalan monarch's eyes. This scene caused everyone to be stunned. The Jalan monarch was stunned as well. A violent burst of emperor might erupted forth as his eyes gleamed with a demonic light, directly shooting into Jalan Mingyue's mind. "Scram!" The Jalan monarch roared. However, Jalan Mingyue spoke. "Jalan, you are too naive." As she spoke, the divine weapon in Jalan Mingyue's hand actually stabbed towards her own neck. The Jalan monarch's expression abruptly changed. He stretched out his palm and directly slapped Jalan Mingyue's hand. At the same time, the demonic light in his eyes grew even more intense. In Jalan Mingyue's mind, there seemed to be a lion guarding there. A gigantic beast that resembled a dragon yet was not a dragon yet was fighting against the lion. "Jalan, the Emperor Palace is under attack." A voice rang out in the mind of the Jalan monarch. In his mind, the gigantic silhouette of a lion king appeared. His expression instantly turned ashen. This was a piece of news sent to him by one of his wives through a messaging crystal, directly transmitted into his mind through his immortal sense. His silhouette flashed as he grabbed Jalan Mingyue and soared into the air. He waved his hand. "Let's return to the Emperor Palace." The black eyes of Crow flashed. After that, a deep smile appeared on his face as he spoke. "Things are going to be interesting this time around." What an unexpected surprise. "Jalan, I want to leave a group of people behind." The eyes of the Jalan monarch flashed. He instantly understood Crow's meaning. Crow wanted to lure the tiger away from the mountain. They were playing a scheme here and the other party was doing the same as well. In addition, this time around the evil emperor was actually lured out. This indicated that not only did they lure out Qin Wentian, they also lured out a big fish, the core leader of the bandit group. But even so, since the Emperor Palace was under attack, he had no choice but to hurry back. After giving the order to leave a group of experts behind, he brought some people with him and sped towards the direction of the Emperor Palace. The eyes of the Crow Emperor flashed as he coldly stared at the surroundings. The Emperor Palace of the Jalan monarch was under attack, and his mind was in a mess. He almost fell for the trap, but the Emperor Palace of the Jialan monarch had nothing to do with him. Hence he was very clear-headed. Even if the Jialan monarch wanted to attack the Emperor Palace, why did they send Jialan Mingyue here instead of killing her directly? Everything was done to disturb the heart of the Jialan monarch, causing him to make a mistake. The other party only had a single purpose, and that was to cover the escape of the Jialan monarch. In that case, among the people trapped here, there would definitely be someone they wanted to capture. In addition, this person seemed to be very important. Who would have thought that the Jialan monarch's random actions would actually achieve an unexpected goal? Things would truly be interesting this time around. Continue with the investigation. Don't miss out on a single one. The Crow Emperor coldly laughed. Qin Wentian, who was in the crowd, had a look of shock on his face. His heart wasn't calm at all. There was actually someone who attacked the Emperor Palace to rescue him? Other than Yi Qianyu, who else could it be? In the supreme ancient immortal realms, the only people he was acquainted with were Princess Kitamura and Yi Qianyu. Upon thinking of that beautiful silhouette, Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. He didn't understand why Yi Qianyu would come here. In the void, darkness descended, covering the sky and the sun, blocking out the sunlight. Everyone raised their heads, and it was as though they could see a gigantic black screen, continuously covering the sky. Very soon, the vast void was covered in darkness. Go! A voice rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. As expected, it was Yi Qianyu's voice. His silhouette flashed as numerous spatial gates appeared around him. As he stepped out, there seemed to be many silhouettes moving in different directions. The Crow Emperor inclined his head and stared at the sky. After that, his silhouette flashed as a pair of black wings appeared on his back. He soared up into the sky with lightning speed as a thunderous boom rang out. An incomparably intense collision rang out in the air. Qin Wentian inclined his head and glanced over. He knew that the Crow Emperor and Yi Qianyu were clashing. Emperor light flashed as beams of incomparably dazzling emperor-ranked weapons destroyed all of Qin Wentian's illusory bodies. However, Qin Wentian's true body continued to shuttle through spatial gates with extreme speed. When all the illusory bodies were destroyed, he already arrived at the boundary of the encirclement. There was an immortal emperor and a group of immortal kings standing guard there. Chapter 1559. It's him. The group of immortal kings stared at Qin Wentian as they instantly rushed over. Qin Wentian radiated the power of light. In just an instant, the law energy of light illuminated the area, piercing into the bodies of those immortal kings. Each beam of light contained a supreme sword intent, directly penetrating through the bodies of those immortal kings. Their bodies were instantly disintegrated as screams of misery rang out. Numerous immortal kings died on the spot. That immortal emperor who blocked the way had a look of shock on his face. He only saw Qin Wentian taking a step out as a spatial gate appeared. Qin Wentian appeared before him, and with a single glance, that immortal king seemed to have fallen into an I-technique dimension. The resplendent sword might of light slashed down. He frenziedly tried to defend, but he only saw tens of thousands of swords shooting out in unison. There was no way for him to escape. Qin Wentian's power was absolute. There was no way to counter it. He could only watch on helplessly as his body was disintegrated bit by bit. With a rumbling sound, everywhere the light passed by, his body was disintegrated into nothingness. Qin Wentian seemed to have penetrated through his body. Everything happened in an instant. The spatial gate flashed again. Qin Wentian stepped out and fled. He came to the Jialan Emperor city and initially thought that with his disguise arts, he would be able to deceive everyone and act according to the situation. Even here, it would be tough for the Jialan monarch to capture him. However, he clearly underestimated the Jialan monarch, one of the 9 monarchs of the supreme ancient immortal realms. The Jialan monarch didn't even need a reason to do something and might even waste his effort. He had already set up such a huge trap. As long as he came here, it would be hard for him to escape even if he grew wings. What Qin Wentian wanted to do was to escape from this invisible net. As long as he escaped from this region, it was impossible for the Jialan monarch to seal the entire emperor city. Given his illusionary arts, it would be as difficult as ascending the heavens for the Jialan monarch to find him again. Beams of emperor light shot towards Qin Wentian. incomparably resplendent. Chaotic law energy engulfed the area as thunderous rumbling sounds rang out. Qin Wentian initially wanted to borrow the power of the spatial gate to traverse the void. However, he directly slammed into a golden wall. After that, he only saw an immortal emperor descending from the sky. This immortal emperor radiated golden light and was like an invincible god of war clad in golden armor. Qin Wentian raised his fist. In an instant, the great radiance art transformed into a resplendent divine fist of light, exuding boundless radiance. He punched out as the boundless light transformed into terrifying divine fists of light, blasting towards that immortal emperor. With just a single punch, the divine fist of light was unblockable. That initial stage immortal emperor whose body seemed to be forged from gold was instantly destroyed, killed by a single punch. So strong. The experts in the surroundings felt their hearts trembling. What kind of innate technique was that? Such power was simply heaven-shaking. The great radiance divine fist was like light, omnipresent, annihilating everything. Such an attack, no initial stage immortal emperor would dare to say that they would be able to block it. But even though Qin Wentian killed an initial stage immortal emperor, he was still intercepted. 2 mid-stage immortal emperors appeared, wielding resplendent emperor-ranked weapons. One of the mid-stage immortal emperors blasted out a bolt of green lightning that was incomparably bizarre, directly blasting into Qin Wentian's body. In an instant, Qin Wentian only felt his entire body going numb. His entire body trembled. Compared to direct attacks, this was even more fatal to Qin Wentian. He had an undying body and an astral soul with the law of life. He could be said to be undying. Even if ordinary attacks caused his body to shatter, he would be able to recover in a very short period of time. However, this strike actually caused his entire body to be paralyzed. In fact, even his soul felt the same way as his body. A gigantic heaven-splitting axe cleaved down, aiming for Qin Wentian. The axe glowed with violet lightning, resembling a lightning dragon that could destroy everything. Abruptly, 2 terrifying bolts of black lightning shot towards the 2 mid-stage immortal emperors. The 2 of them inclined their heads as their expressions turned heavy. They couldn't be bothered with killing Qin Wentian anymore and directly rushed towards the incoming attack. Yi Qianyu's body transformed into a myriad of shadows as she rushed towards Qin Wentian. Humph! Behind him, a towering destructive might bore down on him, terrifying to the extreme. The entire sky turned black as the pressure bore down on the world. The sound of explosions rang out unceasingly as the millions of illusory figures were directly destroyed into nothingness. A terrifying black-colored ancient imprint directly descended from the sky, blasting into Yi Qianyu, who was rushing towards Qin Wentian. This caused Yi Qianyu's beautiful face to glow with a dark light, exuding an aura of death. Palace Mistress. Qin Wentian's silhouette flashed. The ancient tree coiled around Yi Qianyu as his life energy frenziedly flowed into her body. Fool. Yi Qianyu smiled, exuding boundless charm. However, the current Qin Wentian felt that her smile was no longer as tempting as before. In fact, it was filled with a poignant beauty. Palace Mistress, why are you doing this? Qin Wentian transmitted his voiceover. He didn't understand why Yi Qianyu was willing to expose herself for him, entering the tiger's den and coming to the Jialan Emperor city. Could it be that she didn't know that the person the Jialan monarch wanted to deal with the most was none other than the leader of the bandits? Even though she made use of Princess Kitamura to set up a trap to capture him, her ultimate goal was still Yi Qianyu. However, she actually took the initiative to expose herself. Before this, although Yi Qianyu treated him very well and tried to rope him in, wasn't that because of his talent? Wasn't that because she wanted him to become her ally in the future? But now she actually risked her life to come here. The reason you came here is also the reason I came here. Yi Qianyu smiled. A gentle wave of energy landed on Qin Wentian, pushing him away. After that, she once again transformed into a myriad of shadows, rushing towards the bandits. If you still don't leave, I still have to take care of you. It wouldn't be easy for me to escape. Yi Qianyu spoke softly. Her voice was as carefree as before. Qin Wentian felt speechless in his heart when he saw her blocking the attacks of the Crow Emperor and mid-stage immortal emperors for him. If he stayed here, he would only be a burden to Yi Qianyu. The spatial law energy fluctuated. Qin Wentian stepped out, directly traversing through space, moving towards the horizons. There were experts rushing over from all directions. With a roar of rage, an incomparably resplendent light radiated from him as the great radiant's divine fist blasted out. Beams of holy light shot out, akin to sharp swords of light. Everywhere it passed by, everything would be destroyed. For those below the mid-stage of the immortal emperor realm, they had no threat to him at all. Turning his head back, he only saw Qinyu being struck by that demonic whip. This strike seemed to have also lashed out at Qin Wentian's heart. Palace Lord. Qin Wentian really wanted to kill his way back. However, he was afraid that Qinyu would be delayed because of him. Hence he gritted his teeth and sped through space once more. Spatial gates appeared unceasingly, and after a few flashes, he had already left the battlefield. On the way back, he kept changing his appearance until he completely vanished from the immortal senses of his pursuers. At the same time, a huge battle also erupted in the Emperor Palace of the Jialan monarch. The evil emperor wreaked havoc in the Emperor Palace, directly capturing many of the Jialan monarch's sons and daughters. After that, he left when the Jialan monarch arrived, avoiding a direct confrontation with the Jialan monarch. The Jialan monarch madly chased after the evil emperor, causing the entire emperor city to be enveloped by a heavy pressure. In the emperor city, Qin Wentian, who had changed his appearance once more, had been waiting for news from Qinyu's side. However, he didn't receive any news at all. The ending of the battle seemed to have been sealed and no one knew of it. However, the people of the Livefire Palace were all in an uproar. The bandit leader appeared, and it was actually a woman. Her cultivation base was extremely high and her strength was tyrannical to the extreme. The Livefire Palace even sent out peak-stage immortal emperors to kill her. The night wind blew on his body, causing him to feel a chill. That beautiful lake was still as lively as ever. Even though a huge battle had erupted in the Emperor City, it still couldn't stop the passion of the tourists. Qin Wentian sat on a small boat, feeling the chill of the wind. He came to the place where he met with Princess Kitamura in the past. This was also the place where Qinyu performed that world-shocking dance. He stared at the pavilion. The moonlight cascaded down as the melody of the zither rang out. There were still women dancing there, but they no longer exuded the magnificence of Qinyu. However, that beautiful silhouette under the moonlight, that world-shocking dance, once again appeared in Qin Wentian's mind, unable to fade away even after a very long time. Just like what she said back then, after that night it was very hard for him to forget her. "Hug me. If you like it, I might not reject you. Maybe I don't mind being your concubine. Do you want to give it a try?" "Why you came here? I came here for the same reason." Numerous voices rang out in his mind. He came here for Princess Kitamura because he cared about her. Qinyu came here for him because she cared about him. He came here without any hesitation. However, he didn't see Princess Kitamura and implicated Qinyu instead. What happened? A voice suddenly rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. Qin Wentian felt like he was struck by lightning as his entire person stiffened. This was the voice of Princess Kitamura, transmitted through his immortal sense. He took out his messaging crystal and sent a strand of his immortal sense in, speaking to Princess Kitamura. "You weren't captured and beheaded by the Jialan monarch? I was given a mission by the Livefire Palace. I'm not allowed to bring any mission treasures, including my messaging crystal," Princess Kitamura replied. Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently as an expression of extreme pain appeared on his face. "I understand," Qin Wentian replied. After that, no matter what Princess Kitamura said, he didn't reply. It was the same when he transmitted a message to Qinyu. Qinyu didn't reply as well. "Qin Wentian, what's wrong exactly? What happened to you?" Baiming Yohuang's voice was filled with panic. However, Qin Wentian didn't seem to hear it. He walked into the boat and took out an emperor's stone. After that, he sat down and started to inscribe. Law energy flowed out as the emperor's stone transformed. "Can you sculpt a portrait of me as well?" Qin Wentian thought back to Qinyu's voice. The sword in his hand slashed out unceasingly. Gradually, a beautiful silhouette appeared. This was an extremely beautiful statue that exuded a natural charm. Her countenance was unparalleled in the generations. As Qin Wentian sculpted, his law energy fluctuated. In the air, a resplendent beam of astral light cascading down on him. Unknowingly, his entire body was bathed in astral light. Chapter 1560. On the boat, the astral light shone resplendently, illuminating the lake as though it was daytime. Numerous gazes turned to Qin Wentian's boat. All of them felt their hearts trembling as great waves rose in their hearts. Stars descended from the sky, shining together with the constellations. This was a sign of breaking through to the immortal emperor realm. The aura of the young man sitting there soared as emperor light bathed him. The astral light around him grew brighter and brighter as his law energy grew stronger. This was a transformation, a breakthrough. Using sculpting to break through? Many people felt their hearts trembling. They had heard of many ways to break through, but it was extremely rare to hear of someone breaking through while sculpting. Also, the sculpting sword in the young man's hand was actually sculpting a gigantic emperor stone. On top of the emperor stone, a humanoid figure could be seen. This was a female that was extremely vivid and lifelike. A single smile from her could charm 100 people, exuding a myriad of emotions. She was a supreme beauty, causing the hearts of those who glanced at her to pound with excitement. What a beautiful female! Many people involuntarily felt their hearts trembling. Although it was just a sculpture, one could still see the beauty of the female. The true appearance of this female must surely be a breathtaking beauty. Was this young man thinking of her? Or could it be that this young man was heartbroken and pursued the goddess of his heart but failed? Hence, by sculpting here, his state of heart underwent a transformation due to a stroke of good fortune, causing him to break through? No one knew of all these. However, the female that was sculpted was already extremely beautiful. That young man didn't stop. He continued sculpting every corner, every detail, as though he wanted to perfect it. Her long dress fluttered in the wind, her alluring figure was graceful, as well as her slender legs extremely alluring. However, the crowd didn't feel that this young man had any intentions of profanity. Maybe he was only trying to show the true face of this supreme beauty. His movements became very slow, and there was a hint of a smile at the corner of his eyes. Looking at the carved statue, his smile was gentle. However, the astral light grew more and more resplendent as the law energy enveloping him grew stronger and stronger. The surface of the lake was enveloped by the emperor's glow, attracting countless people over. Although there would occasionally be immortal emperors in the lake, it was extremely rare for them to release their emperor's glow to the extreme, causing such a huge commotion. Qin Wentian seemed to be immersed in the world of carving, completely forgetting where he was. He even forgot that he had unknowingly entered the state of cultivation, resonating with the stars in the sky and shining with them. This state was extremely wonderful, and it was also a kind of epiphany. Qin Wentian, who had forgotten everything and was immersed in guilt, suddenly entered this state while he was carving. "Can you also carve a portrait for me?" In Qin Wentian's mind, this voice rang out. Coupled with that amorous smile of hers, it would cause people to be infatuated with her, unwilling to part with her. But at that time, he only calmly avoided her and didn't reply. He also didn't carve a portrait for her. As the final stroke of the sword in his hand landed, it gradually dissipated. The sword transformed into astral light and dissipated into nothingness. Qin Wentian stared at the sculpture as a radiant smile appeared in his eyes. "The sculpture you wanted, I've already carved it for you." Qin Wentian smiled. It was like he was talking to Yi Qinyu. Sadly, if it was really Yi Qinyu, she would definitely reply and even try to tempt him. But right now there was only silence. At this moment, in the surroundings of the lake where Qin Wentian was on, numerous experts stood in the air, exuding terrifying auras. There were even immortal emperors among them. Emperor light shone down on them as they coldly stared at Qin Wentian before glancing at the statue in his hand. Was this the reason why the bandit leader wanted to kill his way here? Using Princess Kitamura to lure Qin Wentian, many people actually thought that Qin Wentian wouldn't appear. However, they actually obtained an unexpected joy. Not only did Qin Wentian show up, even the bandit leader appeared. There was also the gigantic lion, the evil emperor. They didn't expect that these people would be so foolish. "Qin Wentian, you were originally someone from the Jialan monarch's territory, and originally had the chance to become a subordinate of the Jialan monarch. Yet, you ended up becoming a bandit instead. This is simply unforgivable. Now, you should follow us to the Emperor Palace. Maybe in consideration of your strength, the Jialan monarch might show mercy and spare your life, allowing you to atone for your crimes. An immortal emperor spoke. Although Qin Wentian had disguised his appearance, how could they not know who the person on the boat was? Qin Wentian didn't say anything. He quietly sat on the boat. That immortal emperor nervously stared at Qin Wentian, staring at the emperor light. Although he appeared calm on the surface, his heart was filled with trepidation. This man's combat prowess was too terrifying. Before this, he could already kill immortal emperors when he was only at the immortal king realm. Now that his constellation shone with emperor light, his law energy was far stronger than before. This was a transformation. If it wasn't for the fact that he was wary of Qin Wentian's strength, how would he dare to waste words with Qin Wentian? In fact, he even said that the Jialan monarch would show mercy to atone for his crimes. In truth, he was doing this to delay Qin Wentian. Very soon, the Jialan monarch would arrive here personally. Not only for him, the experts in the surroundings also didn't dare to act recklessly. But earlier, the Jialan monarch directly ordered them to capture Qin Wentian. What could they do? They could only brace themselves and descend. However, no one dared to fight. Where is she? Qin Wentian's gaze was still fixed on the statue as he calmly asked. It was like he didn't see the experts in the surroundings, didn't see that immortal emperor existence. Maybe in his eyes there was no such existence at all. Everyone naturally knew who the she he was talking about was. That immortal emperor's expression changed. He didn't dare to defy the Jialan monarch's order, but if he could drag things out, he would do his best. After you meet the Jialan monarch, you will naturally know. Qin Wentian, come with me. I won't make things difficult for you. That immortal emperor's voice was calm, exuding an aura. This caused many people in the lake to sigh in admiration. This immortal emperor's aura was extraordinary, as expected of an immortal emperor subordinate to the Jialan monarch. Even when facing a bandit, he was still so magnanimous. Where is she? Qin Wentian didn't seem to have heard the immortal emperor's words. He calmly repeated his words. Although his voice was incomparably calm, that immortal emperor could feel the weight of his words. His expression instantly turned heavy as he stared at Qin Wentian. Follow me to the Emperor Palace and you will be able to see her. In fact, you might even be able to see Princess Kitamura. As the sound of his voice faded, the statue in Qin Wentian's hand vanished. Qin Wentian slowly stood up and inclined his head, glancing at that immortal emperor. With just a single glance, that immortal emperor felt the heavens and earth changing. He fell into an illusion and the scene he saw was actually the execution platform. As for him, he was chained to the platform. The terrifying chains penetrated through his body, locking him to the mountain ridge behind the execution platform. His entire body floated in the air, as though he was preparing to accept the baptism of death. No, this is an illusion. His will frenziedly told himself that this was fake, an illusion. He mustn't fall into it no matter what. But it was useless. He clearly knew that this was an illusion, but he had no way to break free. He was heavily injured and his life was in danger. His body was chained up and his energy was sealed. He could only wait for death. A sharp sword of light slashed down from the air, akin to an execution sword. He roared in rage as a terrifying might erupted from his body. However, he had no way to block that incomparably resplendent sword of light. With a piercing sound, the sword of light slashed down, annihilating everything. That immortal emperor only felt that he was nailed to the execution platform. But at this moment, the scene before him suddenly vanished. A gentle breeze blew by, but he could no longer feel the beauty of the scene before him. There was only fear and despair in his heart. Although this was an illusion, the sword of light that slashed down was real. With a splashing sound, the corpse of an immortal emperor fell into the beautiful lake. Not long ago, everyone still thought that this immortal emperor had an extraordinary demeanor. But in the blink of an eye, everything that happened caused them to tremble. So it turned out that this immortal emperor was merely pretending to be calm. He basically didn't dare to act. Just a single sword strike and he was killed. A pair of demonic and terrifying eyes floated in the air. This was a pair of extremely bizarre eyes. With a single glance, everyone in the surroundings fell into a miraculous illusion. They all appeared on the execution platform and became spectators. As for those subordinates of the Jialan monarch, they became criminals on the platform and were about to be executed. Those subordinates of the Jialan monarch all had expressions of extreme terror on their faces. Before this, they personally witnessed an immortal emperor being killed. In that case, what they were experiencing now should be the same as what that immortal emperor experienced. What did this mean? It was sufficient to cause them to shiver even though it wasn't cold. The truth was as such. When the execution sword slashed down, the thing they feared the most became reality. Numerous experts were slain in the air above the lake. This time around, the Jialan monarch's operation to target Qin Wentian truly had great rewards. He even managed to lure the bandit leader out. But to the experts under the Jialan monarch, wasn't this a calamity? Even many immortal emperors died. Not only that, even the son of the Jialan monarch was captured by the evil emperor. To the Jialan monarch, did he really win? In addition, everything was far from the conclusion. In the future, if everything could be restarted, even if the Jialan monarch didn't sit on the throne, he wouldn't have initiated this operation. In the lake, a gentle breeze blew over. Everyone awoke from the illusion. They only saw numerous experts turning into corpses as they fell into the lake. All of them could feel how cold the breeze was, so cold that it seeped into their bones. Their gazes turned over, staring at the lone boat once more. Indeed, the boat had become a lonely boat, empty and lonely. The people on the boat were no longer there. It was as though no one had ever appeared on the boat before. Chapter 1561. The Jialan monarch finally arrived, arriving in the airspace above the lake. When he saw the corpses in the lake, his expression was as ugly as it could be to behold. How long has it been? He already used his fastest speed to rush here, but he was still too late. Could an immortal king really be so powerful to this extent? Who can tell me what happened earlier? The Jialan monarch turned his gaze to the crowd on the dragon boat as he calmly asked. Reporting to the monarch, he has already broken through. He was carving in the lake when astral light descended from the sky. He has broken through to the immortal emperor realm. Someone spoke to the Jialan monarch. The Jialan monarch's eyes flashed with sharpness. How can this be possible? The Jialan monarch was one of the 9 monarchs of the Li-Fire Palace, and was able to sit in this position at the mid-stage of the immortal king realm. There was no need to doubt his talent and strength. Other than this, he, the Jialan monarch, came from a supremely powerful power. In the Li-Fire Palace, even the Li-Fire Empyrean might not be able to suppress him. Hence, one could say that the Jialan monarch's knowledge was extremely vast and he had seen many geniuses. However, Qin Wentian simply toppled everything he knew. When he first met Qin Wentian, he was only an immortal foundation cultivator. After that, he heard the news that Qin Wentian was a bandit and that Qin Wentian was a peak-stage immortal king. At that time, he still doubted the authenticity of the news. Right now, Qin Wentian broke through to the immortal emperor realm? Was this a joke? Clearly, no one was joking. No matter how audacious the people here were, they wouldn't dare to joke with a monarch at this moment. The gazes of everyone in the surroundings also proved everything. Qin Wentian had indeed broken through to the immortal emperor realm. In a short period of over 20 years, he broke through to the immortal emperor realm from immortal foundation. Was this possible? Originally, it should be impossible, but it actually happened. In that case, there was only one possibility. In truth, back then, Qin Wentian wasn't at the immortal foundation realm but was an immortal king. A peak-stage immortal king. However, his concealment abilities were extremely strong. Even the Jialan monarch had no way to see through Qin Wentian's true cultivation base. If this was the case, it could explain the relationship between Qin Wentian and Princess Kitamura. An immortal emperor and a peak-stage immortal king. Issue an arrest warrant. Return to the imperial palace. The Jialan monarch waved his hand. After that, he returned to his emperor palace. He still had an extremely important matter to do. He had to mobilize troops from the Li-Fire Palace. He already knew the identity of the bandits. They were very powerful, and now this imperial city couldn't be left unguarded. The evil emperor and Qin Wentian were still outside. He definitely couldn't leave. Qin Wentian has always been in the Emperor City. He was quietly waiting for news, waiting for Yi Qianyu's news. Several days later, more and more news began to circulate through the Emperor City. During that battle, Yi Qianyu was injured and was surrounded by several immortal emperors. In the end, she managed to break out of the encirclement, but she still couldn't escape. Her pursuers found her and captured her. Her identity was also exposed after that. The palace mistress of Heavenly City's Thousand Feathers Palace, the #1 beauty of Heavenly City. Given the power of the Jialan monarch, it was naturally impossible for him to not find out. Hence, the Jialan monarch mobilized experts from the Lifefire Palace and headed to Heavenly City, preparing to uproot the Thousand Feathers Palace. Yi Qianyu was captured and it was unknown where she was imprisoned. Most probably, these people wanted to play the same scheme again, using Yi Qianyu to lure the bandits out. However, this time around, the Jialan monarch didn't dare to be too intense. There was only one reason. The evil emperor captured several of his descendants and left the Emperor City, choosing not to clash head-on with him. The tyrannical Lion King and evil emperor actually prepared a path of retreat. This caused the Jialan monarch's heart to burn with anxiety. The Jialan monarch even requested for the Lifefire Empyrean to use Yi Qianyu as a hostage. After that, he would find an opportunity to capture all the bandits in one fell swoop. However, the Lifefire Empyrean angrily reprimanded him for not doing his job well. Within the Emperor City of the Jialan monarch, a group of bandits actually dared to run amok, simply throwing the face of the Lifefire Palace. There were even several experts who were killed. If it wasn't for him sending the Crow Emperor to heavily injure Yi Qianyu and capture her, the Jialan monarch might have fallen for their trap. With regards to the Jialan monarch's request, the Lifefire Empyrean mercilessly rebuked him. As a monarch, it was one thing for him to not do his job well, but he actually dared to request to exchange the bandits for his loved ones. After all, these bandits weren't captured by him, the Jialan monarch. In any case, although you captured the leader of the bandits, you didn't have anything to do with the Jialan monarch. Not only so, the Jialan monarch even suffered heavy losses. The immortal emperors who died were all his subordinates and those who were captured were his loved ones. The Jialan monarch was naturally incomparably angry in his heart, but he was helpless. He understood that he had to maintain his composure. He knew that the Lifefire Empyrean had always wanted to take him down, and was waiting for him to make a mistake. Although he was one of the 9 monarchs under the Lifefire Empyrean, only he himself understood how he obtained his position. It wasn't as simple as his strength. Today the evil emperor finally appeared. He sent a message to the Jialan monarch's emperor palace, telling him to bring Yi Qianyu to the appointed location for the exchange or he would have to bear the consequences. The Jialan monarch immediately made arrangements, but at this moment, the Lifefire Empyrean directly interfered, sending experts over. At the same time, they did a series of actions that made the Jialan monarch unhappy. However, he had no way to refute them. On the appointed day, he led many experts to the appointed location, but he didn't bring Yi Qianyu along. Yi Qianyu was no longer under the control of the Jialan monarch. When the Jialan monarch left, Princess Kitamura and many experts from the Lifefire Palace came to the Jialan monarch's emperor palace. The aura radiating from Princess Kitamura was extremely cold. Her entire face seemed to be covered in a layer of frost. Compared to the past, her demeanor seemed to have changed, becoming even colder and more beautiful. Her cultivation also grew stronger. She has already entered the mid-stage of the immortal emperor realm. However, there was no joy on Princess Kitamura's face. Ever since she came out of seclusion and learned of everything that happened, she felt a chill in her heart. The Lifefire Empyrean made perfect use of her once and still treated her very well, not forcing her to do anything. In fact, he didn't even mention that the person he wanted to kill was her, Princess Kitamura. But as long as one wasn't a fool, they would know that the person he wanted to kill was her. Qin Wentian knew this, hence Qin Wentian came here. She went to meet with the Lifefire Empyrean, but the Lifefire Empyrean didn't mention anything about this matter. He only smiled and showed concern for her cultivation. What else could she say? What could she do? As the Lifefire Empyrean of the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom, the #1 genius in the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom, she had never been used like this before. She also deeply understood what sort of world the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms was. There were many powerful powers that could control everything, but inside there were many scheming and scheming. Biming. In the Jialan monarch's emperor palace, the Crow Emperor glanced at Princess Kitamura and smiled. Congratulations on your cultivation base breaking through to the next level. Just a mid-stage immortal emperor. Princess Kitamura's expression was cold. She didn't really care about the Crow Emperor. Crow was still smiling as he stared at Princess Kitamura. Although as a peak-stage immortal emperor of the supreme ancient immortal realms, Crow had seen countless beauties before, he couldn't help but to say that it was extremely rare to see a peak-grade beauty like Princess Kitamura. Anyone who saw such a beauty would feel a sense of joy in their hearts. No wonder Jialan wanted to swallow her up for himself back then, treating her as his personal property, wanting to bring her into the harem of the Jialan monarch palace. Regardless of her beautiful countenance or her perfect figure, all of them were enough to cause people to drool. Biming, you have obtained the Livefire Empyrean's favor. Your future would surely be boundless. A faint smile appeared on Crow's face, as though there was a deeper meaning in his words. I will naturally remember the Livefire Empyrean's kindness, Princess Kitamura coldly spoke. Crow laughed before he continued in a low voice. You should know that the Livefire Empyrean has always been extremely unhappy with Jialan. Maybe in the future you will have a chance to replace him and become one of the 9 monarchs, ruling over a region. Although the Crow Emperor was a peak-stage immortal emperor, he didn't feel that he was inferior to the Jialan monarch. However, there were only 9 positions among the 9 monarchs and each of them had their own reasons. Although the status of working under the Livefire Empyrean was extraordinary, how could it be compared to the monarchs who ruled over a region? The 9 monarchs ruled over a vast region. Everything here was decided by the monarchs. This was definitely an extremely lucrative job. Do as the Livefire Empyrean says, Princess Kitamura calmly replied. After that she walked away. The Crow Emperor stared at her beautiful back view as a faint smile appeared in his eyes. This woman and the one who was captured were 2 completely different kinds of beauties. Sadly, it wasn't easy to obtain her. At this moment a cold light flashed in Crow's eyes. He turned his gaze towards the boundary of the Emperor Palace as a deep smile appeared on his face. His silhouette flashed, but not only did he not head there, he headed in the opposite direction instead. Outside the Emperor Palace, Qin Wentian's figure floated down. He didn't disguise himself and appeared with his original appearance. The instant he stepped into the Emperor Palace, several figures blocked his path, all of them staring at Qin Wentian nervously. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see them. He directly stepped out. His immortal sense enveloped the entire area, engulfing the Emperor Palace. Emperor light radiated from him, resplendent to the extreme. Everywhere he passed by, screams of misery could be heard as those guards were directly killed. This light was too resplendent, causing the Emperor Palace to tremble. Numerous experts soared through the air and someone spoke, enemy attack. Activate the grand formation of the Emperor Palace. Waves of dazzling light radiated outwards as boundless light cascaded downwards. The Emperor Palace of the Jialan monarch naturally had a protective formation. However, when the formation was activated, it wasn't as powerful as before. Before this, when the evil emperor descended, he had already controlled many experts and directly destroyed many of the formations from the inside. In a certain location in the Emperor Palace, a beautiful middle-aged woman stared at the light. After that, she sent her immortal sense into her messaging crystal, informing the Jialan monarch. Beside her there was another woman. This woman was none other than Jialan Mingyue. Jialan Mingyue also stared at the direction of the light. Was he here? Was he really that fellow who broke through to the Immortal Foundation realm back then? In another direction, Princess Kitamura inclined her head and stared at the direction of the light as she sighed in her heart. Did he still come after all? Chapter 1562. Qin Wentian has arrived. Arriving at the Emperor Palace. Everywhere the light passed by, it illuminated the heavens and earth, destroying everything. Many experts continued to surround Qin Wentian, but before they could even reach him, the boundless radiance of the light blasted their bodies apart, directly destroying them. Senior Crow. Someone called out loudly. However, the Crow Emperor didn't seem to hear it. Or to put it more accurately, He wasn't even in the emperor palace. Screams of misery rang out unceasingly. Qin Wentian continued advancing, killing his way into the depths of the emperor palace. An immortal emperor appeared. He controlled the formation of the emperor palace as beams of golden light shot towards Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian inclined his head and blasted out with his palms. Numerous golden arms pierced through the heavens and earth, akin to the fists of 10,000 Buddhas, directly shattering the beams of golden light. The countenance of that immortal emperor drastically changed. Although the formation was already damaged, such an attack was still too terrifying. With a wave of his hand, a gigantic golden beast swooped down, blotting out the sky. Its radiance was incomparably resplendent, crushing everything below it. Qin Wentian inclined his head, his eyes cold to the extreme. He lifted his hand and blasted out a war god fist, containing the might of 10,000 Buddhas bowing to him, shaking the heavens and earth. Roaring Buddhic light shot up into the sky, and with a deafening boom, that golden beast was directly penetrated by the boundless might of the fist. After that, it transformed into a golden screen of light and vanished. Qin Wentian's long robes fluttered in the wind. He stepped out, traversing through the air, and appeared before that immortal emperor. With a single glance, the might of light radiated from him, illuminating everything. In just an instant, that immortal emperor closed his eyes as fresh blood flowed from them. After that, his body transformed into motes of light as he screamed miserably. That immortal emperor's eyes were filled with blood as he stared hatefully at Qin Wentian. He simply didn't dare to believe that there was such a great disparity between them. They were both initial stage immortal emperors. Finally, that immortal emperor transformed into motes of light and vanished as though he never existed. Qin Wentian directly walked past them and continued forward. The protectors of the emperor palace were all trembling in fear. No one dared to obstruct Qin Wentian, allowing him to continue on his way. After entering the depths of the emperor palace, Qin Wentian came to the core region. If he continued forward, it would be the Jialan monarch's harem. At this moment, a powerful mid-stage immortal emperor appeared before Qin Wentian. His countenance was extremely cold. "Where is she?" Qin Wentian asked. "Why are you acting so wantonly? Could it be that you want to harm her to death?" That mid-stage immortal emperor coldly spoke. Qin Wentian didn't say anything and directly stepped forward. His eyes blinked as an eye technique sealed the heavens and earth, isolating the emperor light. That mid-stage immortal emperor inclined his head and stared at the sky. He felt as though he had fallen into a pair of eyes. Qin Wentian walked towards him. His expression was extremely cold, like a king of slaughter. Boom! Qin Wentian was bathed in emperor light as he punched out. The great radiance divine fist illuminated everything, blasting forth in all directions, ignoring everything. The expression of that mid-stage immortal emperor drastically changed. The great radiance divine fist ignored all distance, destroying everything, shattering his attack. His defenses were instantly destroyed as a look of despair appeared on his face. After that, as a mid-stage immortal emperor, he was directly destroyed by that tyrannical attack. From afar, Princess Kitamura stood there, her long hair fluttering in the wind. Her beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian, who was enveloped by the light. He has already broken through to the immortal emperor realm and was even more extraordinary compared to the past. He gradually revealed his true magnificence. Even when facing a mid-stage immortal emperor, he was still so tyrannical, sweeping through everything. That great radiance divine fist that illuminated everything, other than the great radiance divine fist, was infused with many other attribute energies. It was absolutely tyrannical. She stood at her original location and didn't move. She also believed that Qin Wentian had already seen her. But at this moment, how could they meet? Princess Kitamura could be considered someone from the Lifefire Palace. As for Qin Wentian, he wasn't simply a bandit now. He even killed his way into the Emperor Palace of the Jialan monarch, one of the 9 monarchs. At the very least, the two of them mustn't be too close on the surface. Princess Kitamura didn't try to stop Qin Wentian. In fact, she didn't even say anything. She only silently watched on. Right now, she already knew the entire story. Qin Wentian came to the Jialan Emperor city because of her, and was surrounded by enemies. Yi Qinyu came to rescue him but was heavily injured and captured. What reason did she have to stop Qin Wentian? As for the people in the Emperor Palace, none of them dared to act against Qin Wentian. They all hid far away and stared at the scene before them with trepidation. Their eyes were filled with incomparable rage. The Jialan monarch personally let people to deal with the bandits. The Crow monarch and Princess Kitamura from the Livefire Palace were both in the Emperor Palace, but they actually chose to ignore them? Only they would be able to stop Qin Wentian. If the Jialan monarch learned of this matter, it was unknown what he would do. Most probably, he would make a commotion all the way to the Livefire Palace. But when they thought of the Crow monarch and Princess Kitamura's subordinates, they couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. Was the Jialan monarch planning to borrow Qin Wentian's hands to do something? In the inner chambers of the Emperor Palace, Qin Wentian arrived. When Jialan Mingyue and her mother, the Jialan monarch's concubine Emolan, saw Qin Wentian's appearance, the expressions in their eyes changed. Emolan was still a little better. After all, she was an immortal emperor and had an extraordinary state of heart. Jialan Mingyue's expression kept changing. She stared fixedly at the handsome face of Qin Wentian. This was Qin Wentian's original appearance. When the radiance enveloped him, Qin Wentian, who cultivated the life attribute radiance, was simply too outstanding. Right now, he was extremely handsome, and it was precisely because of his handsomeness that Jialan Mingyue wanted to take him in as a subordinate back then. However, Qin Wentian rejected her, leading to everything that happened after that. Back then, Jialan Mingyue was bestowed a city by her father and became the city lord. How could she look up to two unaffiliated cultivators? Even though one of them, Princess Kitamura, was an immortal emperor, she didn't feel too much fear because her father was the monarch. However, never in her wildest dreams did she expect that things would change so quickly. Right now, Princess Kitamura could already be considered someone from the Livefire Palace. Even her father didn't dare to casually offend her. As for Qin Wentian, he became a powerful bandit, killing his way into the Emperor Palace with a cultivation base at the initial stage of the Immortal Emperor realm, right in front of her. How ironic was this? Where is she? Qin Wentian's expression was cold to the extreme as he stared at the two of them. Qin Wentian, back then you were an esteemed guest of my Livefire Palace. Why must you become a bandit? If you are willing to repent, I can still persuade the monarch to let bygones be bygones. After all, with your talent, even if you join the Livefire Palace in the future, you would still be highly regarded. In the supreme ancient immortal realms, people like you are the most important. Immortal Empress Molin's beautiful eyes were as calm as ever as she spoke. Qin Wentian's expression didn't change at all. If the Livefire Palace valued geniuses, they might not care about the Jialan monarch's loss. But was it possible for the Jialan monarch to let bygones be bygones? Even if the Jialan monarch could let bygones be bygones, he wouldn't be so magnanimous. His mocking gaze turned to Jialan Mingyue. His eyes were cold, gleaming with resplendent light. When his gaze landed on Jialan Mingyue actually didn't dare to look at his eyes. His eyes were too piercing, but she still stubbornly endured it, staring straight at Qin Wentian. Esteemed guest. Why did I become a bandit? Shouldn't you guys be clearer than anyone? Qin Wentian's voice was filled with mockery. He actually said such ridiculous words. Did Jialan Mingyue think that he didn't know what mining meant? If it wasn't for Jialan Mingyue sending him to mine, everything that happened later wouldn't have happened. Jialan Mingyue's expression grew even more unsightly. All of this started because of her. If it wasn't for her sending Qin Wentian to mine, none of these things would have happened. What do you want to do? If you really kill us, my father will use all methods at his disposal to kill you and that demonic lover of yours. Jialan Mingyue's expression was malevolent as she spoke. Similarly, I will also use all methods at my disposal to kill your father. Qin Wentian coldly spoke. I'll ask you one last time. Where is she now? She has already been teleported away by the Livefire Palace and is no longer in this Emperor city. It's basically impossible for you to save her unless you slaughter your way into the Livefire Palace. This isn't the intention of my husband, it's the intention of the higher-ups. Regardless of whether you kill us or not, you won't be able to change the current situation. The Molin Immortal Empress stared at Qin Wentian. I also know that the hatred between you and my husband is very deep. But at the very least, you are still in a disadvantageous position now. If you kill us, you will only implicate the bandit leader. You better think thrice before you act. Qin Wentian radiated the power of light. He glanced at Jialan Mingyue. Even initial stage immortal kings are so unruly. If you are allowed to live, I wonder how many people would you harm in the future? Qin Wentian still remembered that back then, his comrade Yang Yun, who was mining together with him, had offended Jialan Mingyue and caused her entire family to suffer misfortune. When the light landed on Jialan Mingyue's countenance turned as pale as paper. She stretched out her hands to block the light as she screamed, "Mother, save me!" Emperor might gushed forth from the Molan immortal empress. Although she knew it was impossible for her to defeat Qin Wentian, she still disregarded everything and acted when she saw her daughter in such a state. Qin Wentian waved his hand. In an instant, the light shot into the Molan immortal empress. Her body stiffened as the terrifying power of light ravaged her body. Spatial vines shot out, wrapping around her body. As for Jialan Mingyue, her screams of agony rang out. Her body slowly dissipated within the light. Her beautiful face had long become twisted and contorted, turning into nothingness. Mingyue. Molan forgot the pain on her body. She stared at the vanishing figure and called out loudly. Her gaze was no longer calm. Her eyes were filled with hatred when she stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian had no expression on his face. One of the 9 monarchs, the Jialan monarch, was lofty, thinking that he could control the fate of others. Jialan Mingyue was the same as well. She had never placed him, a minor character who just arrived in the supreme ancient immortal realms, in her eyes. If it wasn't for Yi Qianyu, if it wasn't for him breaking through to the immortal emperor realm, he would have long been squashed to death like an ant. In fact, he wouldn't even be able to leave a mark in the hearts of these people. What impudent bandits! They actually dared to kill their way into the emperor palace. A cold voice rang out. From afar, a surge of destructive energy gushed over. The Crow immortal emperor roared as he rushed over. His arrival was truly timely. Chapter 1563. Molan was controlled by Qin Wentian. Her eyes were cold as she stared at the Crow Emperor who was rushing over. Clearly, he wanted to allow Qin Wentian to continue his massacre in the Emperor Palace. Did the Livefire Empyrean want to act against the Jialan clan? He was actually targeting them in such an obvious manner. The Jialan monarch went to capture the bandits. What would he do after he returned and learned of the situation here? He would definitely be enraged. Release my sister-in-law. The Crow Emperor radiated a terrifying black light, as his destructive might enveloped this entire space. The entire Emperor Palace was enveloped by his might as he stared at Qin Wentian with his pitch-black eyes. Sister-in-law. Molan's eyes were bloodshot as she coldly stared at the Crow Emperor. The Crow Emperor also stared at her and continued, "What a brazen bandit. He actually dares to act so brazenly." Qin Wentian stared at the Crow Emperor in the air as his eyes flashed with an intense killing intent. Back then, it was none other than this Crow Emperor who appeared and injured Yi Qianyu. Also, the fact that Yi Qianyu was captured definitely had something to do with this Crow Emperor. Boundless astral light cascaded down on him. Qin Wentian was bathed in astral light as the supreme radiance of light radiated from him, completely overshadowing the other law energies around him. Release my sister-in-law and allow yourself to be captured. The Crow Emperor coldly spoke. What sort of character was he? Although his talent couldn't be compared to the Jialan monarch, his cultivation base was higher, at the peak stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. At the Immortal Emperor realm, the disparity of a single level was exceedingly great. Even if Qin Wentian's combat prowess was heaven-defying and could kill mid-stage immortal emperors, he would still die if he fought against the Crow Emperor. Princess Kitamura stared at the confrontation between the two parties. Her eyes were as cold as ever as she stared at Qin Wentian. This was the Crow Emperor, a peak-stage immortal emperor. Would Qin Wentian be able to contend against him? The Crow Emperor made his move. Law energy erupted as an incomparably gigantic demon beast appeared behind him. It was actually a black crow. This crow was incomparably black and had a gigantic body that blotted out the sky. Its eyes were a deathly gray and filled with death energy, extremely terrifying. This was a black crow of death. Its deathly gray eyes stared at Qin Wentian. At this moment, Qin Wentian had an illusion that the eyes of death wanted to engulf him, causing him to fall into a state of death. Just one look was enough to kill. The laws of light and life circulated frenziedly around Qin Wentian. An extremely dense life energy gushed forth from him, resisting the corrosion of the death energy. The Crow Emperor's expression was extremely cold. His law domain manifested as a deathly gray death law domain appeared, turning the entire space black. In this region, screeching sounds rang out unceasingly. The entire domain was actually filled with black crows, blotting out the sun. Each of the black crows exuded an aura of death, capable of feasting on vitality. There were simply too many of them blotting out the sky. Those countless black crows of death directly lunged towards Qin Wentian. The great light radiating from Qin Wentian was pushed to the extreme. An incomparably gigantic ancient tree manifested behind Qin Wentian, manifesting a constellation formed from his astral soul. That was an incomparably gigantic ancient tree of life. Rustling sounds rang out as it grew in all directions, exuding an extremely exuberant aura of life. In addition, the branches and leaves of those vines were even sharper than swords. They gleamed with light as they lunged towards the black crows of death, killing them unceasingly. The sounds of crows of death rang out unceasingly. There were simply too many black crows, so many that there was no end to them. Qin Wentian's radiant light radiated from him, slaying the crows of death unceasingly. The number of black crows of death decreased unceasingly, but there was no way for him to destroy them like how he did against initial stage immortal emperors. The defense of these black crows of death was actually so strong to a shocking extent. Numerous ancient golden Buddhas appeared, radiating intense Buddhic light, illuminating the world. Numerous gigantic Buddhic palm imprints blasted out, crushing the black crows of death. Qin Wentian floated in the air. He stretched out his palm as God's hand erupted forth, blotting out the sky, destroying all existences. The black crows of death had no way to reach him. The Crow Emperor seemed to have transformed into a Crow King. His gray eyes coldly stared at Qin Wentian as he blasted out with his palms. In an instant, the black crows of death unleashed even more ferocious attacks. Countless sharp claws slashed towards Qin Wentian. The claws of these black crows of death not only contained a powerful will of death, they also contained an indomitable sharpness. Their claws gleamed with a silver light, wanting to penetrate through the heavens and earth, aiming for Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his hands and blasted out with the divine light fist. The boundless fist of light penetrated through everything, colliding with the incoming attack, shattering it. However, the attacks of the Crow Emperor didn't stop there. He blasted out more black death imprints. Even before the imprints landed, it already caused people to feel a sense of doomsday. It was like under these death imprints death would be inevitable. God's hand blasted out, containing a supreme might. It collided with the black death imprints of the Crow Emperor, transforming into beams of dazzling light that were destroyed together. The countenance of the Molan immortal emperor, who was restrained by Qin Wentian, had already turned ashen. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian infusing his life force into her, she would already be a dead person. When she personally witnessed the battle between the Crow Emperor and Qin Wentian, great waves of shock rose up in her heart. In fact, she was thinking that back then if her daughter Jialan Mingyue didn't offend Qin Wentian and instead befriended him, Qin Wentian might have been able to become the strongest support for her husband, the Jialan monarch. In fact, even though he was only at the initial stage of the immortal emperor realm, he was already strong enough to fight alongside the Jialan monarch. However, such a character, as well as someone as outstanding as Baiming Huang, were actually pushed to the opposing side. Right now, they were even made use of by the Li-Fire Empyrean, causing the Emperor Palace to be in such a miserable state. From this, one could very well imagine how much power the Jialan monarch, one of the 9 monarchs, had. If he made another mistake, the Li-Fire Empyrean could casually find an excuse to remove him from his position. This was truly an ironic matter. His daughter Jialan Mingyue was unruly and willful. The Jialan monarch was also fond of women, leading to the current situation. Right now, Crow's expression was extremely cold. His pitch-black death eyes were terrifying to the extreme. An initial stage immortal emperor with such a great disparity in their cultivation bases was actually able to fight against him? He coldly snorted as his death intent grew even stronger. The black crow flew into a frenzy. Qin Wentian stretched out his hands as resplendent law energy circulated frenziedly around him. His palms shone with a dazzling golden Buddhic light as boundless runes interweaved and blasted out at the same time. Two gigantic palm imprints directly soared through the air, directly arriving before Crow, shooting out with lightning speed. Scram! The Crow Emperor roared and blasted out a death imprint. However, due to his haste, the death imprint was destroyed and his body was actually forced back. His expression involuntarily turned even colder. Qin Wentian's attack was actually able to ignore the spatial laws descending upon him, infusing spatial energy into his palm imprints. This caused him to be caught off guard and was almost at a disadvantage. The Crow Emperor's gaze was terrifying, but the eyes of the gigantic black crow behind him were even more terrifying. The Crow Emperor opened his mouth and spat out a divine weapon. It was actually a deathly gray banner of death. For a period of time, the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves rang out as death chi permeated the air. The black crows actually continued to increase in size as the death energy within them grew denser and denser. Enough! A cold voice drifted over. Crow turned his gaze over only to see Princess Kitamura floating over. Very soon, she arrived in this space as her beautiful figure floated in the air. Beiming, what do you mean by this? The Crow Emperor coldly spoke. You should understand. Princess Kitamura spoke. After that, she stared at Qin Wentian and transmitted her voice. You better leave quickly. You won't be able to win against the Livefire Palace. If you want revenge, come back again in the future. Qin Wentian glanced at Princess Kitamura. He naturally understood that Princess Kitamura was doing this for his own good. However, should he leave just like that? Yi Qinyu was captured because of him, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Could he still leave? Beiming, the Livefire Palace Lord has always treated you well. Why are you siding with him? Crow stared at Princess Kitamura as he spoke. The death intent radiating from him gushed towards her as evil intent flashed in his eyes. He was actually prepared to act against Princess Kitamura as well. The black crows all flew towards Princess Kitamura in a frenzy. Princess Kitamura's eyes were extremely cold. Formless currents of chi engulfed the heavens and earth. She gave a loud roar as her long hair fluttered in the wind. The black crows went berserk, circling around her before turning around and rushing towards the Crow Emperor. You can control the dead? The eyes of the Crow Emperor narrowed as he stared at Princess Kitamura. I've already said enough. Princess Kitamura's voice was ice cold. It's too late. At this moment, the Crow Emperor coldly laughed. A terrifying aura gushed forth as resplendent beams of light shot down from the sky. A group of experts appeared in the Emperor Palace. Qin Wentian glanced over as his eyes froze. He saw the Jialan monarch. The Jialan monarch's expression was extremely ugly to behold. His killing intent surged as he stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. However, he didn't act. Beside him, there seemed to be a few supremely powerful characters. In addition, behind them, there was a prison where the evil emperor and several other immortal emperors were imprisoned. Yi Qinyu's sedan bearers were all imprisoned as well. All of them were actually captured. They were all people from the Thousand Feathers Palace. Princess Kitamura turned pale when she saw this scene. This was the Livefire Palace forcefully interfering. The Jialan monarch clearly didn't have such power. The immortal emperors around him were all peak-stage immortal emperors. Princess Kitamura had met them before. They were all immortal emperors of the Livefire Palace, subordinates of the Livefire Empyrean. As expected, the Livefire Palace was the mastermind behind this. In fact, they didn't even tell her about this. After all, everyone knew that she was acquainted with Qin Wentian. The Livefire Palace and the Jialan monarch were using her to lure Qin Wentian over. How could they tell her about this operation? Chapter 1564. Even the evil emperor was captured. They made an agreement with the Jialan monarch, preparing to exchange hostages and rescue Yi Qinyu, but clearly, their plan failed. The Livefire Palace sent experts to interfere in the dark, capturing the evil emperor and the others in one fell swoop. Roar! A low-sounding roar rang out from the evil emperor's mouth. His aura was extremely weak and his demonic eyes were dripping with blood. Clearly, he was injured. When he saw Qin Wentian, he transmitted his voice, "Quickly leave, leave." Qin Wentian only heard this voice when he saw several peak-stage immortal emperors surrounding him. The Jialan monarch stepped out and coldly spoke, "Release her." He was naturally referring to the Molan immortal emperor, who was captured by Qin Wentian. At this moment, the Molan immortal emperor was also in a miserable state. She was on the verge of death and could die at any moment. Clearly, in the battle earlier, although she wasn't the Crow Emperor's target, she was still greatly affected. Qin Wentian's gaze slowly turned over, landing on a person behind the Jialan monarch. This person was the barbarian emperor. He actually wasn't imprisoned. His eyes were extremely cold as he stared at Qin Wentian, as though there was an irreconcilable grudge between them. "You betrayed the Thousand Feather Palace?" Qin Wentian coldly stared at the barbarian emperor. Qin Wentian, a wise man, submits to circumstances. This time, the barbarian emperor has redeemed himself. "I will naturally report to the Livefire Empyrean to ensure that he doesn't die." A middle-aged immortal emperor beside the Jialan monarch spoke. His cultivation base was extremely high, a peak-stage immortal emperor. He exuded an imposing aura and seemed to be the leader of this group, a traitor who could betray his master. "You guys actually dare to accept him?" Qin Wentian coldly glanced at him. "Qin Wentian." The barbarian emperor's voice was cold to the extreme. "I didn't betray you, Qinyu. I treated her so well and fought alongside her, even becoming a bandit. To think that in her heart I can't even be compared to you. How laughable. I've known her for so many years, but she repeatedly berated me because of you. And now she even ended up like this. Qin Wentian, all of this is because of you. You fought for her and became a bandit because of her?" Qin Wentian mockingly laughed. "Although I don't know what you all experienced in the past, I'm sure that if it wasn't for Yi Qianyu's father, someone like you wouldn't have your current cultivation base and wouldn't have your status in the Thousand Feathers Palace. Barbarian Emperor, go to hell." As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, his eyes suddenly turned incomparably demonic. A pair of terrifying eyes appeared and the barbarian emperor only felt that he had fallen into the space created by Qin Wentian's eye technique. He howled and retreated. "Impudent!" That peak-stage immortal emperor roared in rage. He lifted his palm and blasted out with it. Beams of terrifying emperor light flashed unceasingly, but they were completely unable to affect Qin Wentian. With a glance, the barbarian emperor was enveloped by the resplendent light as he screamed in agony, filled with terror. "You don't deserve to live." Qin Wentian's voice drilled into his ears. This was the last thing he heard before he vanished into nothingness under the illumination of the light. Qin Wentian was also blasted by the incoming energy, causing his body to shatter. However, his fearsome undying law energy and life law energy enveloped him, allowing him to recover swiftly. This caused the immortal emperor who was staring at him to have a look of shock on his face. As for the death of the barbarian emperor, they didn't seem to care much about it. It was just a traitor and he was merely an initial stage immortal emperor. So what if he died? It was just right for Qin Wentian to kill him. "Qin Wentian, do you really want to die so much?" That peak stage immortal emperor coldly spoke. "You want to kill me? Just do it." Qin Wentian coldly spoke. But at this moment, Princess Kitamura stepped out again, blocking Qin Wentian's path. "Dark North." That peak stage immortal emperor stared at Princess Kitamura. Princess Kitamura's expression was like ice. She didn't say anything, using her actions to express everything. Princess Kitamura dares to oppose the Livefire Empyrean? Kill her as well. The Jialan monarch's killing intent was extremely strong, but the Molan immortal emperor was still in the hands of Qin Wentian. He didn't dare to act recklessly. Also, the things that happened earlier still caused him to feel incomparable pain in his heart. Those hostages captured by the evil emperor were all killed. Because the people the Livefire Empyrean sent weren't here to negotiate. They directly acted, completely disregarding the life and death of his descendants. They only cared about the ending. According to their words, capturing the bandits was more important than anything else. From this, one could very well imagine how the Jalan monarch was feeling right now. The him now, if he had enough strength, he might really kill his way into the Livefire Palace. The Livefire Empyrean borrowed the strength of these bandits in Qin Wentian to take away half of his life. Although it was done in passing, the Livefire Empyrean was simply too ruthless. Although he knew that the Livefire Empyrean was a ruthless character, he didn't expect that today the Livefire Empyrean would be so ruthless. Impudent. A peak-stage immortal emperor at the side coldly spoke. The Jalan monarch narrowed his eyes when he heard that. No matter what, he was one of the 9 monarchs. Even if the peak-stage immortal emperor was someone close to the Livefire Empyrean, he shouldn't be so merciless as to berate him, right? As expected, the Livefire Empyrean wanted to act against him. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have fought for this position back then and wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. Dark North's talent is outstanding and the Livefire Empyrean has always regarded him highly. Qin Wentian, although you are a bandit, the Livefire Empyrean cherishes talent. Maybe he might give you a path, allowing you to work for the Livefire Empyrean and atone for your crimes. What do you think? That peak-stage immortal emperor calmly spoke. At this moment the Jalan monarch's body trembled. He was incomparably enraged. Protector, what do you mean by this? The Jalan monarch's voice turned sinister. The person beside him was a protector of the Livefire Palace, and was someone close to the Livefire Empyrean. His words, from a certain perspective, represented the Livefire Empyrean's attitude. If not, recruiting bandits was such a huge matter. Without the Livefire Empyrean's approval, he would definitely not dare to say such a thing. Qin Wentian was a bandit and caused such a huge commotion. He even killed his way into the Emperor Palace of one of the 9 monarchs and killed his loved ones. Right now, the Livefire Empyrean actually wanted to recruit Qin Wentian for his own use? How ridiculous was this matter? At this moment, the Jalan monarch only felt a chill down his spine. The Livefire Empyrean was even more ruthless and venomous than he had imagined. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at the protector in bewilderment. He didn't expect that the protector would say such a thing. Princess Kitamura, who was beside him, also didn't expect this. She stared at this scene in a daze. The Livefire Empyrean's thoughts were truly so deep that it was terrifying. Was he trying to drive the Jalan monarch crazy? However, given Qin Wentian's personality, how could he possibly agree to this? Can you all spare Yi Qinyu? Qin Wentian suddenly spoke. Princess Kitamura's beautiful eyes flashed with a slight fluctuation before returning to normal. This seemed to be more in line with his personality. If it was for Yi Qinyu, he would definitely compromise. However, that protector shook his head. I still have my principles when doing things. Yi Qinyu is the leader of the bandits. She has to take responsibility for this matter. If not, even if this matter was reported to the Realm Lord, the Livefire Empyrean wouldn't be able to give an explanation. However, you guys were bewitched by the bandit leader. As long as you guys are willing to turn over a new leaf, the Livefire Empyrean might still give you guys a chance. The protector didn't just refer to Qin Wentian. It also included the evil emperor and the others. This caused the eyes of everyone in the prison to flash with a strange light. What did these people mean by this? Baiming, you are acquainted with Qin Wentian. Why don't you persuade him? Such an opportunity, if he misses it, only death awaits him. This choice is extremely simple. That immortal emperor stared at Baiming Yuhuang as he spoke. Qin Wentian. Princess Kitamura's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian. Those cold eyes of hers now contained a hint of warmth. Although she didn't say anything, her eyes conveyed what she wanted to say. She naturally didn't wish for Qin Wentian to die. If you want revenge, you can do so after you grow stronger. Why don't you compromise now? Princess Kitamura transmitted her voiceover. Qin Wentian's aura was as cold as ever. He didn't say anything. As for the Jalan monarch, who was not far away, he was on the verge of exploding. These people from the Livefire Palace were smacking his face right in front of his face. Such a death grudge was actually resolved with a single sentence, allowing the Livefire Palace to make use of him? The lines on his face were twitching. He forcibly endured the urge to explode. However, it was extremely painful for him to do so. Qin Wentian, you were too impulsive for my sake and ended up in such a state. Isn't that enough? If you act impulsively one more time, you will die, the people from the Chinyu Palace will die, and I will die as well. Could it be that I can just stand by the side and watch? Do you want all of us to die together with you? Princess Kitamura walked towards Qin Wentian. Her beautiful eyes were still staring at him as she transmitted her voiceover. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Should he compromise? He clenched his fists tightly and stared at the protector. What about Yi Qinyu? How do you all plan to deal with her? I don't have the authority to deal with her. This will have to depend on the Livefire Empyrean's will. However, if you are willing to serve the Livefire Empyrean, you can plead for mercy for her. The Livefire Empyrean is benevolent and should give her a path of survival. However, it's impossible for him to let her go. She caused a huge commotion here, and is also the daughter of the Knight Empyrean. The protector spoke. The daughter of the Knight Empyrean, a subordinate of the Knight Empyrean. Why would the Livefire Empyrean dare to use her? What does he intend to do exactly? Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. If he could protect Yi Qianyu's life, there would be hope in the future. I've been in the Livefire Palace for some years and the Livefire Empyrean is extremely powerful. He most probably wants to keep Yi Qianyu alive and use her to restrain all of you. The Livefire Empyrean naturally doesn't want to use all of you simply because of your talent. From what I know, there's a high possibility that he wants to make use of the conflict between you and the Jialan monarch to deal with those people behind the Jialan monarch, becoming his chess pieces. Princess Kitamura transmitted her voiceover. In order to persuade Qin Wentian, she spoke a lot more. Livefire Empyrean. Qin Wentian naturally guessed the intentions of the Livefire Empyrean. The Livefire Empyrean wasn't worried at all that they would harbor hatred in their hearts. He was extremely scheming and extremely confident. I agree. Qin Wentian spoke. In the end he still lowered his head. He had no choice but to lower his head and compromise. This place was the supreme ancient immortal realms. Chapter 1565. I don't agree. An incomparably cold voice rang out. The Jialan monarch's expression turned extremely heavy. He had been enduring it, but he was about to reach the end of his patience. A bandit who killed his way into his emperor palace, killing his loved ones, as well as those bandits who killed his children, the Livefire Empyrean actually wanted to recruit them as his subordinates? What does this mean? What did they treat him, the Jialan monarch, as? He naturally wouldn't agree. He wanted nothing more than to kill Qin Wentian and the others on the spot. That peak stage immortal emperor coldly glanced at the Jialan monarch. He then spoke, Jialan monarch, this matter isn't something you can decide even if you don't agree or not. I will personally seek the Livefire Empyrean's opinion. If the Livefire Empyrean is willing, if you dare to disobey, you will have to bear the consequences yourself. As he spoke, that immortal emperor took out his messaging crystal and sent a strand of his immortal sense into it. Although the Jialan monarch had already guessed the result, he still stared intently at that immortal emperor. Not long after, that immortal emperor spoke. The Livefire Empyrean has ordered me to bring my men to the Livefire Palace to meet with him. Although the Jialan monarch already knew the ending, his expression was still extremely heavy when he heard this. He nodded, fine. I will follow you all to meet with the Livefire Empyrean. He truly wanted to see how the Livefire Empyrean would recruit the bandits who killed his family into his subordinates. Sure. The immortal emperor nodded. He glanced at Qin Wentian. Release her first. Qin Wentian waved his hand and released Molin Immortal Emperor. The Jialan monarch's silhouette flashed as he appeared beside her, supporting her. Molin Immortal Emperor glanced at the Jialan monarch. As an immortal emperor, she was extremely weak right now. Even in her wildest dreams, she didn't expect that she would end up like this. Princess Kitamura remained by Qin Wentian's side. Although there were so many experts here and there was no need for them to lie to Qin Wentian, she still stood together with Qin Wentian. If the people from the Livefire Palace really wanted to act against Qin Wentian, she would accompany Qin Wentian. Perhaps even Princess Kitamura herself did not realize that the person whom she once hated, and even wanted to kill with her own hands, had now unknowingly become so closely connected with her. Let's go. That protector spoke. After that, the group of them flew towards a certain direction at the back of the Emperor Palace. There was a teleportation array there that could directly lead them to where the Livefire Palace was located. In a world, the Realm Lord was in charge of the 9 world palaces, and each world palace was in charge of a total of 9 monarchs. These powers were all intertwined with each other and were tightly connected. The subordinate powers had no way to command the superior powers to do anything. But as long as the superior powers gave an order, the subordinate powers would gather together in the shortest amount of time possible. Livefire City was one of the 10 main cities of the Lifelong Realm. Other than the place where the Realm Lord was located, there were also the 9 supreme cities where the 9 world palaces were located. The Livefire City where the Livefire Palace was located was naturally one of them. There were many teleportation arrays in Livefire City, allowing one to travel to and from the various regions. The one in the Jalon Emperor Palace directly led to the Livefire region. After exiting, the group of them sped towards a certain direction. Naturally, they were heading in the direction of the Livefire Palace. As one of the most authoritative places in the Lifelong Realm, the Livefire Palace was like a heavenly castle, towering above the earth, piercing through the clouds. Looking up from below, this heavenly castle was incomparably majestic. In addition, the surroundings were shimmering with crimson fiery light, as well as traces of dark destructive light, causing this Livefire Palace to exude an incomparably terrifying might. It was rumored that there was a supreme grand formation beneath the Livefire Palace. The Livefire Grand Formation had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. If someone invaded the Livefire Palace and activated the Livefire Grand Formation, the entire Livefire Palace would be engulfed in flames. However, no one had ever seen the scene of the Grand Formation being activated before. In the Lifelong Realm, who would dare to invade the Livefire Palace, one of the 9 world palaces under the Lifelong Realm Lord? At the entrance of the Livefire Palace, there was a flight of 10,000 meters, ascending step by step like they were on a pilgrimage. The palace entrance was incomparably imposing, and there were experts guarding it. The guards were all immortal kings. When they saw Qin Wentian and the others arriving, they all bowed and greeted, Protector Chan. Protector Chan was none other than the peak stage immortal Emperor Protector. As a protector of the Livefire Palace, his status was extremely high, and he was someone who stood by the Livefire Palace's side. There was no need for him to report to the Livefire Palace if he wanted to bring people in. The group of them entered the depths of the Livefire Palace and came to a majestic ancient hall. Outside the hall, there was actually a group of immortal emperors guarding it. The Palace Lord is currently waiting for Protector Chan in the Great Hall. That immortal emperor nodded to Protector Chan. Protector Chan glanced at everyone. Let's enter. As they spoke, the group of them entered the ancient hall. Within the ancient hall, there were several experts present, but none of them exuded an imposing aura. They simply stood there casually, with the exception of a figure in the lead. This figure was clad in black robes and had a medium build. His features were ordinary as well, but his eyes were filled with spirit. He was currently chatting casually with the others in the Great Hall, and upon seeing them entering, his gaze swept over them. With just a single glance, Qin Wentian felt as though a pair of terrifying eyes could pierce through him with a single glance. I pay my respects to the Palace Lord. Protector Chun bowed. Jalon pays my respects to the Palace Lord. Although the Jalon monarch already hated the Livefire Empyrean in his heart, he didn't dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect in front of the Livefire Empyrean. He still bowed respectfully. Dark North pays my respects to the Palace Lord. Princess Kitamura and the others also paid their respects. The Livefire Empyrean waved his hand and smiled. Protector Chan has worked hard on this trip. This is the duty of this subordinate. Protector Chun calmly spoke. Palace Lord, I've already brought everyone here. Other than those who resisted and were killed, the other bandits are all here. Roar! A low-sounding roar rang out from the prison behind him. The evil emperor's eyes were sinister to the extreme as he stared at the Livefire Empyrean. Back then, the Livefire Empyrean was one of the 2 palace lords who encircled and killed the Night Empyrean. Evil Emperor, the Night Empyrean has already died for many years. You have been a bandit for so long, but I didn't expect you to still be so restless. The Livefire Empyrean smiled at the evil emperor, as though he didn't care about the existence of a peak-stage demon emperor at all. I heard from Protector Chan that the evil emperor is willing to submit to me. Is this true? The Liefire Empyrean asked again. He naturally wouldn't say that he was the one who initiated this. After all, the Jialan monarch was still here. Although there were some things that everyone had a tacit understanding about, he still had to put on a good show on the surface. Qin Wentian turned and stared at the evil emperor. That pair of demonic eyes of the evil emperor flashed with a hint of struggle. The evil emperor seemed to have sensed Qin Wentian's gaze and also glanced over. He exchanged glances with Qin Wentian as he steeled his heart and made up his mind. Even if he had to suffer humiliation, he had to accept it. He had to wait. Even if there was no chance, he had to wait for one. Yi Qianyu was still in the hands of the evil emperor. He couldn't allow them to die for nothing. Really? The evil emperor closed his eyes, as though he was extremely unwilling. The Liefire Empyrean naturally understood his reluctance, but he didn't care. What he wanted was a conclusion. He naturally understood that the evil emperor and the others wouldn't truly submit to him, but he didn't need the evil emperor to do so either. He only needed them to be useful to him. What about you guys? The Liefire Empyrean glanced at the others in the prison. Everyone nodded, feeling extremely unwilling to submit. Protector Chun released them. The Liefire Empyrean waved his hand. Protector Chun directly walked up and kept the treasures that imprisoned them, releasing the evil emperor and the others from the prison. Palace Lord. At this moment, the Jialan monarch spoke. He stared at the Liefire Empyrean and spoke. They killed my loved ones and children. I hope Palace Lord can retract your order and kill these heinous bandits to serve as a warning to others, shocking the other bandits. The Liefire Empyrean glanced at the Jialan monarch and smiled. Jialan, I know your mood isn't good. However, there are many bandits in my Liefire Palace, and this time around, your side suffered heavy losses. My Liefire Palace is severely lacking capable people. Now that these bandits are willing to repent, we will naturally give them a chance to redeem themselves. Palace Lord, if even bandits like this can submit, wouldn't the hearts of your subordinates be bitterly disappointed? The other monarchs and subordinates of the other Liefire Empyrean would also be bitterly disappointed. The Jialan monarch bowed. Impudent. A peak stage immortal emperor beside the Liefire Empyrean angrily berated. He stared at the Jialan monarch. Jialan, you dare to speak to the Palace Lord like this? Are you trying to offend your superiors? Your subordinate doesn't dare. The Jialan monarch still lowered his head. The Liefire Empyrean stared at the Jialan monarch as he slowly spoke. Jialan, from your words, it seems like you have a great prejudice against this seat. This voice was incomparably calm, yet it caused the Jialan monarch to feel a chill. He lowered his head even more. Your subordinate doesn't dare. This seat knows that your losses this time around are heavy, and you lost your loved ones. I can understand you, and hence I didn't punish you. However, don't forget who you are. As one of the 9 monarchs, 2 of your main mines were plundered by bandits. This is simply tyrannical, and you, a monarch, don't even have the slightest bit of strength. You still need this seat to send people to cooperate with you. This seat is very disappointed in your ability. The Liefire Empyrean coldly spoke, his words causing the Jialan monarch's heart to tremble. This group of bandits are much more capable than you. The Liefire Empyrean spoke again, causing the Jialan monarch's heart to sink to the freezing point. His countenance turned pale as he felt agony in his heart. He knew that the Liefire Empyrean wouldn't change his mind because of his words. The people in the Great Hall all stared at the Jialan monarch with mockery in their eyes. They naturally knew why the Liefire Empyrean would do this. The other monarchs weren't like the Jialan monarch, who had a powerful clan behind him, and dared to oppose the Liefire Empyrean. How could the Liefire Empyrean tolerate them? Qin Wentian. At this moment, the Liefire Empyrean no longer looked at the Jialan monarch. He directly stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the Liefire Empyrean. After that, the Liefire Empyrean stood up from his seat and walked down. He stared at Qin Wentian and smiled. I long knew that your relationship with Yuhuang isn't bad and you have such talent. This seat truly admires you. Although you are a bandit, from what I understand, you were forced by the daughter of the Jialan monarch, Jialan Mingyue, to become a miner. You originally had no choice but to do so. Speaking of which, this can't be blamed on you. Since you are willing to turn over a new leaf and submit to this seat, You can directly tell me what position you want. The Jialan monarch's body trembled violently as he involuntarily clenched his fists. Chapter 1566. Qin Wentian also froze when he saw the smile on the Li-Fire Empyrean's face. At this moment, the Li-Fire Empyrean didn't exude any sense of imposingness at all. He was smiling at him, like an elder of the Li-Fire Empyrean's generation. In the Great Hall, many immortal emperors stared at Qin Wentian as smiles appeared on their faces. Protector Chun laughed. Qin Wentian, such treatment is truly rare. As a protector, I've never enjoyed such love from the Li-Fire Empyrean before. He's so young and has such outstanding talent. No wonder the Li-Fire Empyrean treats this junior so highly. Another immortal emperor laughed, as though he was very friendly to Qin Wentian. How was this treating Qin Wentian as a bandit? Qin Wentian was speechless, but he soon recovered. He naturally wouldn't be so foolish as to ask for a seat. He politely replied, Wentian thanks the Li-Fire Empyrean for your love. I know nothing about the Li-Fire Palace, but I'll do as Palace Lord says. It's just that if Wentian is so bold, can I make a request? As long as you don't request me to release Yi Qianyu, everything can be discussed. The Li-Fire Empyrean laughed, not bothering to hide anything at all. It was like this incident that caused a commotion in the Jialan monarch's territory was insignificant in his eyes. I wish to meet with Yi Qianyu. Qin Wentian stared at the Li-Fire Empyrean, not knowing what his reaction would be. However, he only saw the Li-Fire Empyrean casually smiling. No problem. I'll get Protector Chun to bring you to meet with Yi Qianyu later. It's just that Yi Qianyu is the leader of the bandits, and is also the daughter of the Knight Empyrean. It's impossible to release her. Naturally, if it isn't for you being able to make great contributions in the future, I might be able to give her better treatment. For example, as long as she obediently stays in Li-Fire City, it's fine. Qin Wentian's eyes suddenly gleamed with light. However, the Li-Fire Empyrean smiled and returned to his seat. He then continued, you just arrived here. It's not convenient for me to directly appoint you as one of the 9 monarchs. Also, although your combat prowess is strong, you are still lacking. In the future, if you can break through to the mid-stage of the Immortal King realm and make some contributions, you might have a chance to become a monarch, helping this seat to guard a region. Right now, you can temporarily take over the position of the governor of the northern regions of Li-Fire City. Many people in the Great Hall had gleams of sharpness in their eyes. Back then, although the Li-Fire Empyrean regarded Princess Kitamura highly, he only allowed her to continue guarding the Jialan monarch's territory, and didn't give her any important tasks. But now, the moment Qin Wentian arrived, he who was only at the initial stage of the Immortal Emperor realm was actually given the position of governor. However, very soon after, a meaningful look appeared on their faces. The Li-Fire Empyrean's actions were truly brilliant. In addition, since the evil emperor and the others are willing to submit and are familiar with you, I will hand them over to you. They will be your subordinates. Naturally, if these fellows still dare to act recklessly in the future and don't cherish this opportunity, this seat will definitely kill them. The Li-Fire Empyrean's voice suddenly grew more imposing. A powerful might bore down on the evil emperor, causing the evil emperor to lower his head. His large eyes flashed with a ferocious light, but he could only endure it for now. Palace Lord. At this moment, Princess Kitamura, who was at the side, spoke. The Li-Fire Empyrean glanced at her and asked, Yuhuang, do you have something to say? Palace Lord. Qin Wentian and I are old acquaintances. Can you arrange for me to go to Qin Wentian's territory as well? Princess Kitamura spoke. Qin Wentian glanced at her when he heard this. Yuhuang, I have other arrangements for you. There's no need for you to go to Jialan's territory in the future. Just listen to my instructions. However, I know that your relationship with Qin Wentian isn't bad and both of you are in Li-Fire City. The two of you can meet and chat at any time. There's no need for you to stay together. The Li-Fire Empyrean smiled. Princess Kitamura naturally understood that this was a rejection. She knew that there was no need to mention it anymore. Hence she nodded, sure. Alright, Protector Chun. You are the one who brought these people here, I will hand them over to you. First, get Qin Wentian to meet with Yi Qianyu. After that, get them to head to the northern city regions for the handover. The Livefire Empyrean instructed. Protector Chan nodded. Your subordinate bids farewell. After speaking, he glanced at Qin Wentian. Brother Qin, let's go. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. Protector Chen's way of addressing him instantly changed to Brother Qin. Nodding his head, Qin Wentian coldly glanced at the Jialan monarch. The Jialan monarch's expression was extremely ugly to behold, but he didn't say anything. What else could he say? The Livefire Empyrean has already arranged everything. There was no need for him to say anything. How laughable. These bandits actually became governors in the blink of an eye. In addition, they were even assigned to the northern city regions. The schemes of the Livefire Empyrean were truly deep. Your subordinate will take my leave as well. The Jialan monarch bowed. The Livefire Empyrean calmly nodded as he sat there and closed his eyes. The Jialan monarch cast a deep glance at the Livefire Empyrean before he turned and departed. This time around, he was played by the Livefire Empyrean, borrowing the hands of the bandits. However, what else could he say? Most probably, his clan would only feel that he was useless. If not, how could he be in such a miserable state because of a bunch of bandits? The Livefire Empyrean was merely taking advantage of the situation. In the end, he even sent people to help him. If this wasn't because he was useless, what else could it be? The Jialan monarch's departing back was filled with desolation. But when he walked out of the Emperor Palace, his eyes flashed with an extremely cold light. The northern city regions? He would definitely make them die without a burial ground. Even if this place was Livefire City and not the region he, the Jialan monarch, was in control of, so what of it? His clan was everywhere. He would definitely take revenge for this. Naturally, the Jialan monarch understood that this was the result the Livefire Empyrean wanted. But even if he knew, how could he not take revenge? If he had enough strength, he would definitely drag the Livefire Empyrean in for revenge. It was just that he was still too weak now. The Livefire Empyrean was one of the 9 World Palace Lords, one of the 9 Empyreans under the Lifelong Realm Lord. How could it be so easy to deal with him? Protector Chan, Qin Wentian, Princess Kitamura and the evil emperor walked together. Protector Chan spoke to Qin Wentian. Brother Qin, in the future, you and I will both serve the Livefire Empyrean. Let's get closer to each other. Protector Chan is too polite. Qin Wentian replied. Brother Qin, I've already witnessed your combat prowess. In the entire Livefire Palace, Empyreans with such combat prowess are extremely rare. No wonder the Livefire Empyrean favors you and made an exception for you, directly conferring you the title of a governor. Such treatment has never been given to anyone before. Also, a governor has to be at least at the mid-stage of the immortal emperor realm. Protector Chun spoke. Qin Wentian calmly nodded. He didn't say anything. He only wanted to see Yi Qianyu as soon as possible, and see how she was doing. Behind them, the Crow Emperor's expression was also extremely unsightly. He didn't expect the Livefire Empyrean to play such a trick. Although he knew that the Livefire Empyrean was making use of Qin Wentian, he still felt very uncomfortable. After all, he was the one who acted against Yi Qianyu and Qin Wentian this time around. Qin Wentian would definitely harbor hatred in his heart. In addition, the Crow Emperor knew what the Livefire Empyrean wanted to do with Qin Wentian. In that case, the Crow Emperor would definitely support Qin Wentian, even allowing his cultivation base to improve and giving him authority. If that was the case, things would be extremely awkward for him. However, he couldn't control the Livefire Empyrean's intentions. He knew very well what sort of character the Livefire Empyrean was. Hence, he didn't say anything earlier and only listened quietly, silently contemplating. Yi Qianyu was a mid-stage immortal emperor with extremely powerful combat prowess. She was also the leader of the bandits and her imprisonment naturally wasn't ordinary. Right now, Yi Qianyu was treated as a serious criminal and was imprisoned in the Livefire jail of the Livefire Palace. The Livefire jail was a supreme treasure that contained a dimension within. The atmosphere within was extremely sinister and terrifying. When Qin Wentian and the others came out, they immediately felt a terrifying sinister aura gushing over. Outside the jail there were 2 guards. Their cultivation bases were only at the Immortal King realm and were pitifully weak. However, there was no need for guards to guard the Livefire jail. No one would be able to escape and no one would dare to break into the jail. You guys wait outside. Protector Chan spoke to the evil emperor and the others. Why can't we enter? The evil emperor coldly spoke, not giving any face to Protector Chan at all. Protector Chan coldly glanced at him. The Livefire Empyrean only agreed to let Governor Qin meet with her. You guys remember this. Right now, you are working for the Livefire Empyrean and you have to follow his orders. The eyes of the evil emperor were extremely cold. Qin Wentian glanced at him and spoke, I'll go. The evil emperor nodded and didn't say anything more. He watched as Protector Chan and Qin Wentian entered the Livefire jail together. The interior of the prison was extremely vast. It was pitch black, sinister and damp. As he walked in step by step, numerous terrifying gazes landed on him. He saw many characters with disheveled hair staring at him. These people were all locked up in their own cells. Also, their cultivation bases were all extremely high. All of them were immortal emperors. Yet, they were all imprisoned here as death row prisoners. Protector Chan, how will the Livefire Empyrean deal with these people in the future? Qin Wentian asked. That would have to depend on him. However, many of them would be refined into death puppets or trained as death warriors. Naturally, if there are people who are willing to work for him outside, there would naturally be exceptions. Protector Chen's words seemed to be hinting at something. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with an unsightly expression. Was he using Yi Qinyu to hint to him that he would work for the Livefire Empyrean outside? Finally, Qin Wentian saw Yi Qinyu. She was locked up in an independent cell. Her aura was extremely weak and her cultivation base was sealed. When she saw Qin Wentian appearing, a look of shock appeared on her haggard face. Brother Qin, you guys can chat. Protector Chun left at the right time. Qin Wentian had a look of guilt on his face when he saw Yi Qinyu's appearance. He clenched his fists tightly. However, he only saw Yi Qinyu smiling sweetly. Her smile was incomparably radiant and was as charming as ever. She spoke in a seductive tone. Why? Are you so unhappy to see me? I've implicated you. Qin Wentian walked to the side of the cell and stared at that beautiful silhouette. Yi Qinyu walked to the side of Qin Wentian and smiled. Not bad. You have already broken through to the immortal emperor realm. As expected of the man I fell in love with. My judgment is as good as ever. Qin Wentian felt even more pain in his heart when he saw that she was the same as before. He stretched out his hand, wanting to touch her haggard face, but he only saw Yi Qinyu retreating, evading his hand. I gave you a chance in the past, but you didn't want it. Now you want to take advantage of me? Chapter 1567. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled at Yi Qinyu. He stared at Yi Qinyu's countenance only to see that she was still smiling at him. She didn't seem to be imprisoned at all. But the more this was so, the more uncomfortable Qin Wentian felt. With a flash of light, a statue appeared in Qin Wentian's hand. This statue was extremely beautiful and there was a beautiful silhouette carved on it. Upon seeing this statue, Yi Qinyu's beautiful eyes brightened. After that, she glanced at Qin Wentian with hidden bitterness in her eyes. Her gaze was extremely alluring. You are finally willing to carve a statue for me. Although it has some charm, it is ultimately not as beautiful as you in person. Qin Wentian compared the statue to the real person. Yi Qinyu's beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light. She stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. When did you learn how to speak sweet nothings? Could it be that you learned it when you were chasing after the granddaughter of the river portrait immortal emperor? Qin Wentian was speechless. Yi Qinyu giggled. Why? Are you planning to give this statue to me? However, Qin Wentian shook his head. I naturally have to keep it by my side. This way I can see you at all times. Also, I can remind myself not to forget that you are still here. Yi Qinyu's eyes flashed with gentleness when she heard Qin Wentian's words. She then spoke. Why didn't I see you being so good at talking in the past? Is it because the Livefire Empyrean wants you to submit to him? Given your talent, there's no need for this. You can head to other places and join a major power. In the future, you can even take revenge for me. Why must you suffer for my sake? After being together for so many years, how could Yi Qinyu not understand Qin Wentian's character? He submitted to the Livefire Empyrean most probably because of her wanting to protect her life. As long as he submitted to the Livefire Empyrean, the Livefire Empyrean might not kill her. In that case, he would have a chance to rescue her in the future. Although she had not experienced the outside world with her intelligence, she could still easily guess what had happened. Qin Wentian stared at her. He didn't say anything. Yi Qinyu continued, also, don't think that the Livefire Empyrean would spare me just because you are working for him. If he wants to use you, it must mean that you have some value to him. And because of this, although he wouldn't kill me, he wouldn't spare me either. He would always use me to restrict you. Your weakness is too obvious. You place too much importance on emotions. Once you act blindly due to your emotions, you would be seen through by others with a single glance. He bitterly smiled and shook his head. How could he not understand Yi Qinyu's words? However, this might not be a bad thing for you. After entering the Livefire Palace, you would have an official identity, and in the future, you would be able to come into contact with the wider world. In the future, you have to remember not to let your emotions affect your decisions so easily. Before you have enough strength to sweep everything away, you should learn how to use other methods to protect yourself, as well as the people you love. Yi Qinyu walked towards Qin Wentian. Her beautiful eyes flickered with gentleness as she smiled. All right, it's time for you to leave. Qin Wentian stretched out his hand again, placing it on Yi Qinyu's beautiful face. This time around, Yi Qinyu didn't evade, allowing Qin Wentian to caress her face. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a seductive light, filled with deep emotions, stirring up the hearts of men. Qin Wentian smiled radiantly. Wait for me. After speaking, Qin Wentian directly turned and left. He didn't turn his head back, but his hands were unknowingly clenched tightly together. Yi Qinyu stared at his departing back as her heart grew even more resolute. A radiant smile appeared in her eyes, and after Qin Wentian's figure completely vanished, she slowly returned to her cell and leaned against the cold wall before sitting down. However, the smile on her face didn't fade away. She smiled. I once wanted to change everything, but I've long since understood that it's nothing more than the ravings of a fool. The strong will rule the world. This is the law of nature. Since I'm powerless to change this, I hope that one day, the person who controls this world would be the person I love. You are also a fool now. A cold voice rang out from not far away. It was someone from another cell. He icily spoke, with just him, an initial stage immortal emperor. He wants to control this world? Just a single Livefire Palace alone is sufficient to stand above the heads of countless people. To them, the vast majority of people in the immortal realms are merely ants. In addition, there are even stronger characters in the lifelong realm. To them, let alone ordinary characters, even immortal emperors like you and me, or even palace lords and world overlords, aren't we ants as well? Qin Wentian smiled. Yeah, everyone in the world is ants. Ants should follow the rules. Yi Qinyu mumbled. She then smiled. However, even for ants, there are existences that can break through the heavens. If not, where did those people who are at the peak come from? Livefire City was one of the 10 main cities of the lifelong realm. It was naturally extremely vast and majestic. There were 5 governors in Livefire City. They were respectively the Central Governor, Eastern Governor, Southern Governor, Western Governor, and Northern Governor. Livefire City was divided into 5 different regions. The 5 governors were in charge of the 5 regions, and their authority was extremely great. Although they weren't like the 9 monarchs in Livefire City, their statuses were transcendent. Even for the 9 monarchs, they didn't dare to be too arrogant before the 5 governors. Let alone the fact that their cultivation bases were also very high. Right now, the northern governor was surnamed Meng. His cultivation base was very strong and was a peak stage immortal emperor. His authority was immense, and Qin Wentian initially thought that he would be reluctant to leave the governor's position. But after he came here with Protector Chan, he discovered that he was wrong. Extremely wrong. Governor Meng was very happy to welcome him, and after the handover, he passed the governor's position to Qin Wentian. It was like he wasn't giving up the governor's position but a hot potato instead. In addition, Qin Wentian could tell that this Governor Meng was truly happy and didn't want to take the governor's position. This made Qin Wentian think of Princess Kitamura's warning. Could it be that the Jialong clan's influence in Livefire City was so terrifying? So much so that this Governor Meng actually wanted to resign and leave. According to what Princess Kitamura said, This northern region was where the Jialang clan was located. Their influence in the northern regions was extremely great, and could even be said to be able to cover the sky with one hand. Before this, Qin Wentian thought that no matter how strong the Jialang clan was, they were still under the Liefire Empyrean's control, and it was impossible for them to suppress the Liefire Empyrean's subordinates. But after he came here, he discovered that he might have been wrong. Yu Huang, how much do you know about the Jialang clan? Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to Princess Kitamura beside him. I don't know much. I only know that their power is extremely great. This is especially so in the northern regions. It's rumored that the Liefire Empyrean's orders might not even be comparable to a single sentence from the Jialang clan. Princess Kitamura replied. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a strange light. Seems like the Liefire Empyrean has long thought of what position he should place him in. And given the hatred between them and the Jialan monarch, he would definitely kill them. If they were too useless, they would be directly killed by the Jialan clan. He believed that the Liefire Empyrean wouldn't feel any pity for their deaths. If they could contend against the Jialan clan, the Liefire Empyrean would be more than happy to see such a situation. Hence, no matter what the ending was, it would only be beneficial to the Liefire Empyrean. After sending Governor Meng away, Protector Chan spoke to Qin Wentian. Brother Qin, for the matters that follow, we will have to depend on Brother Qin to do your best. The Liefire Empyrean has handed the northern regions to Brother Qin. I'm sure Brother Qin would be able to manage them well. Protector Chan, as the governor, what is my main responsibility? What do I need to do? Qin Wentian asked. He didn't understand the rules of Liefire City at all. I can't explain it clearly with just a few sentences. The governor's manor naturally has its own records room, and there are also servants and maids waiting for me. They will help Brother Qin to familiarize yourself with everything. I'll bid my farewell first. Protector Chen smiled. Qin Wentian saw that Protector Chen didn't intend to stay any longer. He nodded and sent Protector Chen away. The governor's manor was extremely vast, including the inner and outer residences. The inner residence was where the governor resided, while the outer residence was even larger. It was where the subordinates of the governor resided. However, Qin Wentian discovered that this governor's manor was extremely cold and cheerless. It wasn't as majestic as he had imagined. At this moment in the inner residence, several figures appeared before Qin Wentian. There was an old man at the Immortal Foundation realm as well as 2 serving girls. Their cultivation bases were also at the Immortal Foundation realm, and they were all very weak. However, their looks were top-notch, pure and charming. We pay our respects to Lord Governor. The butler and serving girls bowed to Qin Wentian. In this governor's manor, there are only the 3 of you? Qin Wentian asked. Sir, you might not know this, but in the northern regions, there aren't many people who would dare to take up a post in the governor's manor. The butler replied. Why? Qin Wentian asked. Ever since the Liefire Empyrean took control of the Liefire Palace, the number of governors in the northern regions changed the fastest. In addition, more than half of the governors either took the initiative to resign or... The butler stuttered. Or what? Qin Wentian calmly asked. Or they died. The butler lowered his head. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness. In the Liefire City, there were actually governors who died. Also, according to the butler, it wasn't just a single governor who died. What kind of position did the Liefire Empyrean want him to sit in? Who killed them? Qin Wentian thought of the Jialan clan, but he still asked. The eyes of the butler flashed with terror. He shook his head. This subordinate has no idea. Just speak your mind. Qin Wentian asked again. This subordinate really has no idea. Other than a few people who were found out and were executed, even the Liefire Empyrean doesn't know who killed the other governors. The butler lowered his head very low. Assassinating a governor in the Liefire City was definitely a major matter. If the Jialan clan was the one who did it, how could they leave behind any evidence? Qin Wentian suddenly thought of Governor Meng who left. Most probably, he treated this governor's position as a hot potato and was very happy to resign. How many people are there in the governor's manor? What are the positions? Qin Wentian asked again. 3,000 people under the direct control of the 3 vice-governors. Under the vice-governors, there are 10 attendants who each control 100 people. The butler replied. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. He then spoke, "Go and help me summon the 3 vice-governors here." A look of difficulty appeared on the butler's face. Qin Wentian frowned. "If you have something to say, just say it. It has been a very long time since the 3 vice-governors came to the governor's manor." The butler bowed. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. "As the vice-governors, you actually neglected your duties?" The butler lowered his head even more, not daring to speak. This made Qin Wentian understand that this governor's position wasn't an ordinary one. In addition, there was even danger to his life. How strong was the Jialong clan?